hottest internet access countries, and we're glad because of digital migration, we now need also a safeguard around cybercrime. There's what they call dark web, the things below what formally happens, to ensure that we've got laws that watch, for example, for cyber attacks, that watch, for example, for criminals that use the internet to either harass or try to do fraud, so that A, there is intervention in that sense, and B, there is also laws that support that intervention that comes. Those are some of the examples. And of course, we've got something like KICA Act. It's actually due now. I have read and we've been part of it. It's actually now 10 years since the KICA Act was reviewed. So we're at a stage where I am aware the previous minister actually got a committee to start making recommendations. It's now to progress that KICA Act review to ensure that sections on broadcasting, sections on telecoms, sections on the other enhanced services are reviewed to be in step with where the environment is.
I thank you, Isaboke. I want to call upon Dr. Joyce Bensouda, County MP Homa Bay, to engage you.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, Stephen Isaboke.
Thank you, Honorable Bensouda.
In order to ensure, because we are being viewed by the public, and this is also an opportunity for the public to understand broadcasting and telecommunication, allow me to ask my question in two parts, very simple as introduction to my two major questions. Could you demystify your technological grounding on broadcasting and telecommunication so that we know that you understand the ministry where you're going to be the PS in case you succeed as you're praying? But B of the question, what are the archaic policies? Because I believe you have done your research and established policies which you'd want to say you will explore to improve on. Therefore, what are the policy gaps and what are you intending to bring on board? That's question number one. Number two, or do I give you time? I think I would want to chair.
I would allow you,
yeah.
Honorable Bensouda, you ask very critical questions and allow for a response before we go to the second one.
Very good.
Yes.
I agree. So I give him the opportunity to respond.
Thank you. Through the chair, Honorable Bensouda, thank you. So the first section, which basically was a preamble, you asked me to demystify to what extent my exposure or knowledge of broadcasting and telecoms endear me into this position I'm being nominated to, if my understanding is correct.
Chair, allow me to repeat my question to the nominee. Could you demystify your technological grounding by giving us the difference between broadcasting and telecommunication? That gives evidence of your technological grounding, not the information that you know around that.
Thank you. Thank you. It's clear. Thank you, Honorable Bensouda, for clarifying. So broadcasting is actually a case where you've got a one-way communication using a channel. In this case, you might use a TV, you might use a radio, or a call where you actually TV or radio. Telecom is a case where you actually have a platform for two-way communication. So both are actually communication channels, and you'll see, Honorable Bensouda, that in fact there's convergence between broadcasting and telecoms. But in terms of distinction, we always say that broadcasting is one way. You actually broadcast from a point to mass. For example, you're actually broadcasting from a station in Nairobi across the country, but the people cannot reach back unless they possibly do it through the internet. In the case of telecoms, it gives a platform where you can actually do communications. You can actually go into the internet and send messages, send SMSs. So telecom is actually a two-way communication. You actually have a pack channel. So both are communication channels. One is one-way and mass, and the other is two-way and mass.
Could you kindly proceed and answer part B of the question which I asked on the archaic policies, gaps which exist, and what you intend to do?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. If successful, I will obviously cease of the position and get briefed around the current state, but my take from my own understanding, there are a couple of laws that are actually not quite updated, although we had the Constitution of Constitution of Kenya 2010. And in this space, we have, for example, acts around the KPC Act. The KPC Act is a very old act because KPC was the initial broadcaster in this country. While it was successful at the beginning, the environment has changed. It's one of the acts I will propose through the committee and the other arms of government to review so we can revitalize it and actually have a commercial and other national interests so that it actually steps up and actually is competing with other operators. So KPC Act will be one of the interventions. Number two, as I've said, the KICA Act is actually 10 years old now. It was reviewed back in 2009. It has not been reviewed for that period. 10 years for technology, Honorable Bensouda, and you are my neighbor from Homope. I notice the good work you do. Obviously, 10 years is a long time for technology. We intend to actually revisit this KICA Act and engage as required by our law and the Constitution to ensure that every provision in that KICA Act, which covers broadcasting, telecoms, courier services, and ICT innovation, is actually current, and especially current to the current population aspirations, and also obviously speaking to the plan, especially around the digital economy.
Fair trial on that. My question number two, I would like you to highlight on 4 key regulatory framework within broadcasting and telecommunication, and how you intend to ensure there is a balance between the regulations or the regulatory framework and innovation to ensure that there is a lot of economic benefit and relevance in terms of our constitution regarding telecommunication.
Thank you through the chair. So the Honorable Bensouda has asked for 4 key regulatory interventions around broadcasting and telecom that I will actually focus on. Number 1, it's around local content. There is a regulation on local content for broadcasters that in fact requires that each broadcaster carries part of their content is actually local content. We'll review and try to incentivize such that it's no longer just by law, but by practice, either by enabling affordability of local content, giving certain incentives to actually ensure that broadcasters are actually able to actually afford and actually avail the local content. In terms of telcos, I see that the sector is actually maturing and the several operators, so we shall also have some regulations around, for example, co-location of infrastructure. So you notice that if there's a new entrant, does C actually need to establish a fully established network across? The solution is actually MVNO, Chair. So you have a mobile virtual network that actually rides on your network. For example, what Airtel has done with Equitel, the Equity Bank service, such that Equity does not have transmitters, but actually rides on Airtel. It's again laws in that sector to ensure that, for example, the partnering is safeguarded and there's no exploitation. There is also laws around market dominance. I think it's also to look at consumer protection. So while Kenya is a liberal market economy, the consumers that the honorable members represent need to be protected. And just to ensure that while we allow for innovation that might lead to some operators being dominant, that in fact some of the laws address consumer protection. So ensuring that, for example, the regulators check the price points, check delivery of services to the vulnerable, or for example, the disabled, or actually the disadvantaged, that in fact they have equal access. And then there are a couple of other laws that we actually need to enact to actually ensure that we move forward. And it's something that we can actually look at, Honorable Bensouda.
Would you clarify something about licensing?
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Bensouda.
Just hold on. Clarity, Daktari. Licensing in what field? in his State Department.
In his State Department, under the regulatory framework. I mentioned 4, he has cited 3. That's why I've brought on licensing, Chair.
Pose the question. Daktari, pose the question. No.
I was just asking the nominee, I'm asking you to clarify the regulatory framework on licensing under telecommunication and broadcasting.
Thank you. I'm very clear, Chair. So the broadcasting and telecom services are actually licensed by the Communications Authority of Kenya, which is the sector regulator. There are several acts within the KICA Act that spell out licensing. There are classes of licenses that actually license broadcasters, and for broadcasting specifically, Chair, I actually want to say that the regulator merely manages spectrum and just maintains order. Otherwise, freedom of broadcasting, freedom of establishment is actually guaranteed in the Charter of Rights. So the regulator merely coordinates frequencies and order. So in terms of framework, we will review that and see, for example, new emergent technologies like, for example, the online consumption, which is actually not part of what they cover, because in this case, the guys who cover TV and radio, which is traditional, but we're seeing technology coming in, we're seeing OTT services, is actually to try to bring our licensing framework that now encompasses the new emerging broadcasting platforms, which is actually online. In terms of telecoms, there is obviously a licensing framework that allows telecom operators to bid for licenses that obviously include being awarded a national operator network license, and through that they offer voice, video, sort of mobile money and everything else. And it's just to ensure that in terms of licensing, that the regulator is open, is fair, is affording every other sort of applicant or interested party an opportunity to participate in the licensing framework, and that they actually have an equal chance to participate. Just further, just one more segment is actually the telecom, the postal services. As the honorable member and honorable members will realize, that was also liberalized. So Posta Kenya is not a monopoly for postal services. You have licensed courier services. Again, it's to look in that segment just to make sure there is no abuse of dominance, or in fact the market is a level playing field.
The last question. To what extent would you explain to the Kenyans that we have upheld as a country media freedom? We have observed in the past cases that the media have been denied their freedom. We have seen demonstrations in the past. We have seen lack of safety to some extent in some areas. We have seen their voices which have not been addressed in the past. We have seen them struggling during coverages and other things. How are you going to ensure that you uphold that media freedom is not abused, constitutional rights are also given, without with mitigating political polarization, so that there is a balance?
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, I'd like to respond to Honorable Bensouda to say that media freedom is actually enshrined in our Constitution. If you look at Chapter 1 under the rights, basic rights, so access to information, media freedom, and also free expression are actually guaranteed in the Constitution. Those are among the protected clauses in the Constitution. No one can touch them. And the way it was framed is that, in fact, if there's any intervention, it's actually around safeguarding national interests, security, and all that. So just from the onset, Ms. Honorable Bensouda, my approach will actually be, first of all, refer to the Constitution, refer to the law, and ensure that that law and Constitution is actually being respected by both the government agencies and the media operators. Number two, where there could be issues operational, my approach will actually be engagement, so that if they are free, they should say what they want, but there is also freedom with accountability, especially on matters that you should safeguard around our nationhood, national sort of security, peace, those sort of national ethos which are also in the Constitution. So that balance, Chair, will actually be attained, is like a bicycle, a two-wheel bicycle. They have the freedom, yes, and that cannot be touched, it's sacrosanct. But as they exercise the freedom, we call them out and say, hey, please do not infringe, just like a referee calling you out, sometimes just a verbal or sometimes a yellow card, not in an offensive way, just to call you out and say this might infringe on the existence of the nation or, in fact, national good. And in the process, with continuous engagement, the media should then be able to be engaged. And if we exercise fairness, Chair, just like a referee as we watch the Premier League, people know the referee, if he calls you, is not victimizing you, is calling you because there is something and you explain yourself. So balance is actually going to be attained by, first of all, I and the leaders will actually be leading with in this sector, understanding the law and respecting the law. Number two, ensuring that our operators who are licensed also understand the same, so we come from the same understanding. Number three, where issues come, and there does come issues from time to time. We are in a really wild Chair. These media houses are actually led by human beings. They've got their own biases or interests. We then engage. The first instance is engage. Engagement is, like stakeholder engagement, is rock bottom. Explain your concern. They explain their perspective. Eventually, you then say, this is why we actually want to intervene, or this is why we want you to self-regulate. In fact, we prefer self-regulation, so that you're restrained around what you can't do because you know the consequences. And obviously, if it exceeds, there is also, the law also provides what can be done just to ensure that they play within that freedom. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, in conclusion, which is not a question, but something for the nominee to think through, probably it might emerge because it's a sector which is part of their freedom. And when it comes to media freedom, we are not only talking of expression of speech or what they are broadcasting or through telecommunication. There is serious challenge of salary or their remuneration. And that is part of their right. They don't need to go on street demanding for payment, demanding for promotion, an area which is part of the media or broadcasters' right. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Honorable Bensouda, I'll ask you, would you want to put it to the nominee, or would you want to pose it as a question?
Thank you, Chair. The nominee should be in a position, because he's also a Kenyan, assuming that it goes right for you to own this office. We are having the media that is on the street demonstrating, asking for their salaries. I was one time confronted by them as a parliamentarian and legislator to explain to them what we are also doing. I'm throwing that back question to you. What are you going to do to ensure that the broadcasters are not on street demanding for their pay and ensuring that there is a balance? We have public and private broadcasters. What action are you going to do? And this particularly with KBC. I visit KBC, which appears to be a dilapidated institution. I'm a non-motivated person who wants to air even government policies and issues that are touching on Kenyans. What are you going to do to ensure that their remuneration, we no longer see them on street? Thank you.
Thank you, through Chair. I would like to state with humility that media are actually Kenyans. Media are our brothers and sisters. They have families. They have obligations. They also have a right to exist. So in terms of approach to the issues that the Honorable Bensouda has actually enumerated around the current friction, where some media are actually lacking salaries, and salaries are a basic thing for an employee. In fact, they're on the streets. She affirms that some of them have Contera. She's very well known. You cannot miss her on the street. I'm not surprised for the good Honorable Bensouda. And in fact, that KPC facilities are actually dilapidated, meaning they're actually run down and in bad shape. I would like to respond by saying that if approved, and I actually take on the honor to lead this function, the first thing I'll do, Honorable Chair, is actually go to the basics. Where did the rain start beating us? It was never usual that in an entity in Kenya that, in fact, you work for a month. We used to hear about it, else we are not here. Where did the rain start beating us? Number two, to say, if there are pending bills where these media houses have worked, they're due to be paid, and they're legitimate and confirmed, and that obviously is something that I will be subject to guidance from the structures as I'll find. We will ensure that we lobby the relevant entities within government, with its treasury, all in fact support from the highest level, to ensure that we release those pending bills. Then the cash goes in circulation to the media houses, and the media houses are able to meet their basic obligation. So to also ensure that in terms of activities, that in fact we are fair in terms of how we activate if there are any commercial engagements out there. In terms of specific KPC, Honorable Chair, I will actually, again, re-engage back in the turnaround plan, look at our assets, look at our liabilities, and say, because the exchequer is constrained, Treasury can no longer afford to give all the funds that the state enterprises require. Is there another thing we can do with own-generated funds? And this is why I said this respected senior man, old man, should actually look at these assets, lease, let, use for some partnership of sorts, and start utilizing that to actually ensure they have a live stream. So, in other words, KPC getting their own generated income, which of course will impress upon the board and management to ensure that becomes reality and the people are actually paid salaries. So I concur with you, Honorable Bensouda. It's not human for people to actually not be paid. It's not human for people to be protesting, to be given their basic right. I think it's a thing that I'll seize as a leader and as a very humane person, just to ensure our people are secured.
Thank you, Honorable Bensouda. Allow me, committee members and the nominee, to cede the floor to the Vice Chair. Vice Chair, kindly engage the nominee.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations. There's one thing I want to remind you. For you being nominated, for you to be in this platform, I want to ask you, I want you to be specific. I'm not a man who needs a lot of stories. My question is one-on-one. For example, I want to be the best ones. Do you understand this committee? What's the name of this committee?
It's actually the Committee on Communications. The Committee on...
Committee on Communications,
Yes.
You do more research on it. Do you understand the role of this committee towards the department you're being nominated to?
Through the Honorable Chair once again, and my understanding of the role of the committee is actually embedded in the Constitution. The way government works is that the government, through the executive, will run ministries. My function as PS will actually then engage with this committee in terms of my programs, my proposals, my policies, including budget planning. We'll then engage with you to support us so that that is actually taken on into the bigger plan. And eventually, I'm then able to fulfill the mandate of the department and my sagas that are under me. So the committee is actually my approver, it's actually my boss. I will then have to engage with the chair and the committee to ensure that we are securing anything that we need on our side. Then we take it to the national level.
Remember, any regulations concerning your department must pass through this committee.
That's correct.
Now, the second one. Do you understand your structures in the docket of telecommunication and broadcasting?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have obviously knowledge from my own sort of observation that, in fact, the structure entails, my department structure entails broadcasting and telecoms. So in that, I have an administrative director. Then I have a director in charge of communications, national communications. I've got a director in charge of telecoms and postal services. And as I said earlier, there is also a directorate of National Communications Secretariat. There's like a think tank that cuts across. Below that, you then have different functions that feed into these directorates that feed into my office.
Perfect.
If approved.
Do you understand the sagas in this department?
Through the chair, I just ask that you repeat again.
I'm asking.
The sagas, these are semi-autonomous
Yes.
government agencies within your department.
Yes, I do.
Can you mention them?
The sagas under this department are actually Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, the Communications Authority of Kenya, the Postal Corporation of Kenya, the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication, and other subsidiary ones like the National Communications Secretariat.
We also have Media Council of Kenya.
Media Council as well, yeah.
Good.
Which you had mentioned that earlier.
Which I mentioned, yeah.
It's one of the sagas, said me.
Yeah.
Now, the key question now, the reason I'm asking you that, your outgoing predecessor, the former now, Professor Kisangani, were you aware that at the end of his tail end, started an habit of ganging the media houses and commanding and using the powers within his office by directing that these media houses never broadcast using government agencies? Now I'm asking you, you are giving us very good explanations, but once, if God will allow you to be now in the office, are you not going to use the same powers and gang these media officers, every media stations, that they should sing to your song? Which is your song? Remember, you are appointed to be in this position by somebody else, who's the president. What if the president is not happy with a specific media station? Are you going to sing to the boss or sing as per the law?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Miruka. He's actually a neighbor from home. So I'd like to respond.
This is a tough neighbor. This is.
I'll actually respond to this question.
He's basically asking you to be jirani mwema.
Thank you, Chair. I'm protected. Regarding this question, I will not specifically be able to comment. It will not be fair for me to comment about my predecessor personally, but I just want to comment in a generic sense to say the media freedom, as said earlier, and as established in the law, is actually embedded in the Constitution under the Charter of Rights. Freedom of expression, freedom of media, freedom of access to information are all embedded. You cannot change them unless you get 3/4 via a referendum. So it's embedded. Number two, with that understanding, referring to the law, because in these public offices, through the chair, you have to be guided by the law, not your own sentiments or whims. Guided by the law, I will ensure that I humbly follow the conventions of the law. If there are instances where, for example, there's been tension or misunderstanding between media and other establishments, state or otherwise, I think the first intervention, Chair, is actually engagement. So gagging is not a modern tactic. Even in your own house, and I'm sure some of you have Gen Zs or younger, Gen Zs, you cannot gag even your own children. They will protest back and say, Daddy, no. In this case, as a regulator or as part of the regulatory ecosystem, I will promote the approach of engagement. And I am sure my colleagues, and we did a lot of engagement, even digital migration, my colleagues will be alive to call someone and say, hey, there's an issue here, can we meet over coffee and understand what's going on? And then from there, have interventions where they either self-regulate or you alert them about the consequences. So engagement and public participation.
I like that, and I wish you make it practical if you are less. We were successfully nominated to this position. Now the last one, which is very interesting. We have two types of leaders. Remember, you are going to be the accounting officer in this ministry, meaning you have some powers and privileges within your docket. Are you going to be a man who wants to take it all? That the sectors you have told me that are under you, they should come to your office for them to operate, or you are going to be somebody who give them freedom to operate, do the right thing, and then be answerable to you?
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, my style of leadership, obviously, in this context, again, will be guided by the law. So the position of Principal Secretary as established as defined roles and responsibilities in the Constitution and under the Public Service Act, that will be my guiding principle in terms of the official engagements. Number two, in terms of the conduct that the Honorable Alpha Miruka mentions, my style of leadership will actually be more to do with empowering. So ensure that everyone is aware of their roles and responsibilities, ensure the roles each one of them is contributing, ensure each one of them is actually pulling or playing their role to deliver the services to the public. My analogy, Honorable Chair, is like a football club. So each one, from the goalkeeper to the forward, are all playing their role. So enable and empower. Obviously, with a caution that they must play within the law, they must play within the rules, and there's consequences. If, for example, they go outside it, and when they need approval, they seek approval at the next levels, even if it's mine. Thank you.
Good. Me, I needed just one answer, strike, no explanation. The last one. Which approach are you going to use? Remember, this country is trained in terms of exchequer system, from getting government to fund the government operations. Which approach are you going to use for partnership investors towards your department? The approach is very important. You have mentioned about the leasing of KBC assets. These KBC assets, remember, these are just a hot cake for grappers. You're going to face a lot of resistance. How are you going to make this thing happen for A in KBC to improve, for the KBC to revive and become live in this nation? And how are you going to do the approach of PPP and other investors in the ministry?
Thank you, through the chair. The PPP Act actually spells out how public enterprises can engage private sector collaborators or partners to deliver certain mandates and actually to raise own generated revenue. That will be the guiding principle in terms of the framework for KBC or any other entity to actually approach potential private sector partners. So the guiding principle is the PPP Act, which is actually also enacted and actually existing. Number two is for KBC to have a plan, because if you approach any private sector operator, you need to have a plan that is actually commercially viable, that's attractive, that is also rewarding and sustainable. Once you come with that, you then float it out according to the public sort of a PPP Act and also the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act. Because if you're going out, you need to be careful that you're not, for example, single sourcing. Number three is just to ensure that whichever partners, obviously going through the normal appeal to get, whichever partners you get have the capacity and they're actually compatible and they comply with the law as your partner. And then in the process, you raise resources.
Remember, that's the most sensitive part of it. Remember, you have said here you are a shareholder in GoTV. How are you going to maneuver now in that approach and reduce the conflict of interest?
Through the chair, my neighbor is visiting a question that I thought I'd actually closed completely and dead and buried. So my answer through the chair again is that I am actually conscious of that potential conflict. It's not manifested yet. As a first step, as I said, I have now stepped down as a director. Number two, if approved and successful, I intend to review my position as a shareholder subsequently. And I will be declaring wherever any conflict comes and recusing myself from being involved in any of those things.
I thank you, Vice Chair. I want to offer this opportunity to the Honourable Member for KU South. For Kuresoi South, sorry. KU South, you'll come later. Just acclimatize and catch up.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Isaboke, what strategies will you put in place to promote local content creation while balancing freedom of expression and national cohesion?
Very important.
Can I ask the next? Or he deals with
because that
one?
was direct. You can ask both of them. He'll answer thematically.
Mr. Isaboke, I have the second one.
Yes.
The Universal Service Fund, USF, aims to bridge the digital divide, but has faced criticism over transparency in allocation. How will you enhance equity and transparency in expanding connectivity to underserved areas, and specifically allocation for rural broadband infrastructure? Thank you, Chair.
Two very critical questions. Write down your alley in the State Department of Broadcasting and Communication. Mr. Isaboke.
Thank you. Through the chair, the Honourable Member of Parliament for Kuresoi has asked two questions, and I'll take them in that order. In terms of local content, that's actually a very fundamental question, because what has happened with the digitizing, which is actually very much part of the current government, is sort of a plan around digital economy. We have a lot of capacity. It's like having many highways, because digital has opened the airwaves completely. So in order to incentivize and ensure that our youth, we in fact are the biggest challenge the president and the country is dealing with, we will put regulations and other incentives that actually enable the youth to actually access local content. I, for example, am aware that in fact there is an active rollout of digital hubs in all the 1,450 wards in the country. So a digital hub is basically a hotspot where internet has been enabled. You literally get there, get a password, you can get in. So you literally can record, for example, a TikTok and post it online and start getting views. And we know that people commercialize all those digital platforms and actually earn revenue. So it will actually be honorable to promote access of our digital platforms through, for example, the plan, which talks about digital access in the last mile, and ensuring that the youth and people in the rural areas have access of internet and other services as good as we, the privileged in Nairobi. And through that, they will actually have a lot, Mheshimiwa, user-generated content. If as many of us generate the stuff and put it out, some of it becomes commercially viable, some of it becomes communication. So in terms of national cohesion, is again the message I said around train the youth to be nationalist. Train users of channels to actually, wherever they're communicating, to think about country, not sectional, not local. And in the process, when they'll be recording and distributing anything, for example, what we see in WhatsApp, TikTok, and all that, they're talking about fashion, entertainment, sport, achievements, maybe very successful agriculture, other than anything that is actually negative, like bigotry and hatred. Those will be some of the things that we'll actually use in terms of regulation. The honourable member raises the question around USF and actually says that there has been a question around transparency in terms of its allocation of funds, especially covering underserved areas, to address specifically the broadband infrastructure. That's a very apt question for this moment, because in fact the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, which is actually part now of the bigger broad-based approach, is actually digital economy. And there's no way you can have a digital economy without digital infrastructure to the deepest rural areas, literally the deepest local markets. So, like I said earlier, the USF was actually established to ensure that use the funds from operators. All these telcos and customers fee, tax of sorts, they get money. That money should be used for where commercial have not actually accessed. Is that there could be either they've been disadvantaged or actually not covered at all. My role as PS, if approved, will actually be to seize particularly the details around those non-covered areas. And that's why my engagement will actually be encouraging a two-way engagement between the committee and myself and my officers. Once we know those, USSAF is under the CA board. We'll then engage through the CA board and the USF advisory board to ensure that they address those. After all, they've actually been put in place and those funds are actually there to serve Kenyans. So we'll actually ensure that mandate is fulfilled in an equitable and sustainable way. Thank you, Chair.
Are you satisfied? I want to give this opportunity. Engineer, you'll hold your horses because we've really leaned on the side of broadcast. I want to go into telecommunications a bit. Allow me to cede the floor to the County MP Baringo to pose some questions around telecommunication.
Thank you so much, Chairman. And our nominee, 22 and 23. My question is, the Competition Act's Cap 204 provide that a firm in any industry that has a market share of above 50% in dominant and should be so declared and treated as such. The market share of one telecom operator in Kenya is estimated to be above 60%. Some of the agencies that should protect consumers from such abuses have been hesitant to declare this dominance. How will you deal with this issue? That is one. I don't know whether you would answer that and then we go next.
I'm guided by the chair.
Okay.
They are very, I would imagine that you're still in that space of telecommunications, so
yes,
you can ask both of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. There has been resistance also of a push to have telecommunication operators split their businesses so that mobile telephone services are regulated by the Communication Authority of Kenya, while the monies related services, which is financial services, are regulated by the Central Bank of Kenya. What is your view in this, on this split? Thank you, Chair. I think I will take that.
Thank you, Honorable Jamatia, because those are critical questions.
Yes.
Question number one has to do with dominance in the telecommunication industry. And the way the Honorable Member for Baringo posed it is that we have regulatory bodies that should be superintending over the situation of dominance. And they have been hesitant to even declare some clearly dominant players to be dominant in the sector. Secondly, the Honorable County MP is very keen to know about the issue of a dominant player having all their entities operating from under one roof. Honorable Jematia, I thank you for that question.
Yes, I will add something after that, but I want to listen to what the nominee is giving us on this matter.
So in terms of money-related services, if I hear the Honorable Jematia right, what should fall under your purview and what should fall under the purview of CBK when it comes to regulating fintech? The fintech services, yes.
Thank you, Honorable Jamatia. Through the chair, I would like to address the first question the Honorable Member asked about potential operator that in fact might be holding share above 60%. And as she states, some state agencies...
In fact, the law stipulates
correct
that anyone, even a point above 50%, is already dominant. So it's not even 60. What she said is that some operators are even going beyond 60%. But the law stipulates that anything above 50% should be deemed dominant and declared such.
I'm guided, Chair. So I'd like to respond to that question by saying that, in fact, just tracing back, and I'll make just a short sentence. Going back to KICA 209, competition is a section in the KICA Act, and it was actually one of the sections where we had a very contested submission with the other operators from telcos and ourselves as broadcasters, because sometimes we're being fingered as being dominant. In the course of regulation where the regulators actually took a lot of time, that section was taken, revisited again, reviewed again. Then a debate ensued, and this is where the answer to my honorable comes in, that in fact, Kenya is a free market economy. So there is no problem with dominance. Dominance per se is not a problem. It's a piece of dominance. It's a piece of dominance. So the premise was that if you innovate, and you're the first to implement a certain project or program, you will then run ahead because you're first in mind, you're the one that consumers adopt, and you run ahead of every other operator. So we do not want to punish you, and that point came out, don't punish success that is coming out of innovation. What you should check is a piece of dominance. In this case, for example, for the telco that the honorable member speaks about, let's look at consumer protection. Let's look at pricing, predatory pricing, if they're doing anything. And the Communications Authority has got a competition department that looks after those parameters. They do research. If an operator is found, for example, to be violating appeasing price and all that, then interventions are done. And just one example, traditionally, the interoperability rates were actually skewed towards one operator. We are aware that those have subsequently been reviewed. And in fact, the other operators are actually now able to fairly compete between inter-network calls, just as an example. So really, it's addressing a abuse of dominance, and that's an ongoing function of the Communications Authority. In terms of the second question, through you, Chair, which raises the question about mobile telcos are also a financial services provider through the sort of mobile money transfers. And the Honourable Member asks, what do we then do? I mean, between the sector regulator, which is broadcasting and telecoms, and the central bank, which is actually regulating financial services. Again, this is a sort of an occurrence from history where the telcos actually innovated and came up with the mobile transfer. As members will know, the mobile transfer by one of the leading operators was actually one of the pioneer ones globally. So they then innovated. And in fact, at the point of mobile innovation, there was no regulation. So what do we then do? I think it's a cross-sectoral issue. It will take both the central bank, who regulates financial services, and broadcasting regulator, and the telecoms regulator, to then engage and say, how do we deal with this mongrel that is operating from both telecoms and the financial services, and to ensure that they actually operate within, the law, and in fact serve the public. The biggest interest here is public service that is sustainable. I'll say the best approach will actually be engage with the central bank, and of course engage with those operators to see if there's need to review any of those structures, because it's cross-cutting.
What would you say to those who would advise this committee to adopt a wait-and-see attitude before intervening on the matters that have been brought forth by the county MP for Baringo? There are those who tell us that if you rush to regulate, you will be suppressing innovation. There are those who say to this committee that if you do not, then you're not doing the job that you're supposed to be doing, presiding over the sector. How do you play the balance between rushing to regulate and allowing for the market to mature to a place where it self-regulates?
So, through the chair again, this is a case where maybe operators are actually coming for arbitration or for determination or direction because they stand at different positions. In this case, you've got a section that favor wait and see, as you say, or you've got another section of interested parties that are actually interested in intervention. That obviously then becomes an issue of interest, public interest, and our constitution, and in fact the way we operate even as a sector, entails sector consultations, sector engagements, and if possible, public participation. So we, first of all, will have to listen to each side that is representing their views, both those who are actually saying let the operators are without any infringement or sort of inhibition, and those saying that there should actually be some overreach. Once we do that, we then sit back collectively as this committee and the sector operators to actually find where is the best interest of Kenyans served. Are they actually being served properly as is, or what adjustments do we need to ensure that the operators are actually fulfilling the Kenyan services? And to your point, just to close, Chair, innovation is a very open-ended thing. So we have to be careful that in the process of trying to overreach and regulate, that we actually do not inhibit ideas, new ideas coming, progressive things coming. M-Pesa will never have been pathed, and I now mentioned it by brand, if it was never let to run ahead of regulation. It's very common sometimes for innovation to run ahead of regulation, and we call it, you can spill a bit of blood. Then eventually you now regularize. You now get the regulation catching up, and you engage and set the laws. Thank you.
Stephen, are you conversant with the idea of sandboxing? And what is your understanding of sandboxing as a concept even utilized in a space of innovation?
So not quite, Chair, in detail, but in terms of the innovation, obviously, there's a whole process that ideas come from incubation to the market. So that specific term, I cannot comment on it specifically, but I do know that ideas, and in this case, for example, we have innovation hubs for ICT in Kenya, then you actually check for viability and technical, sort of compatibility. You then make tests, eventually test for sort of commercial viability, eventually commercialize.
The Honorable Engineer Mark Nyamita.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, allow me to ask that, I don't know whether the nominee, we are bombarding you with too many questions. You want to take a small break or you are still okay? Because we don't want you to feel really harassed because it's been quite one after another. I propose, Chair, that maybe you give him a bit of a break, lest he faints here before. But if you're okay to continue, we can go on.
Through the chair, I'm guided, but if also, because we are all human beings, if also members need a comfort break, need to break eyes as we continue. It will not be me alone. Also, the honorable neighbor, the honorable Mark Nyamita, who is actually from my neighborhood, is making a natural, very good nature suggestion. So I plead maybe a 2 minutes nature break for all of us, not myself. And we carry on.
We will appreciate that, if not anything. We have before us a very witty communicator. So, members, it is upon yourselves. This is your committee, and the time being 7 minutes past midday, I would allow for a 5-minute break, if you would allow, so that we convene here at 1:15. So, kindly, members.
Okay. Thank you.
Engineer Nyamita. And even as we do this, members, remember what our standing orders stipulate in regard to our engagements with our invited guests. Thank you. So, honorable members, you might want to settle down. We shall be starting the session in the next 2 minutes. Sergeant Shana, you might want to comb the corridors for me and get anybody who you think is relevant to get in. We are starting in the next 2 minutes. Mheshimiwa Kiba. Honorable members, I want to invite you. This is a continuation of the session we had, so we do not have any preliminaries to undertake. And at this point, I had ceded the floor to the Honorable Member, Engineer Nyamita, member for Uriri, and instead of taking the floor, he decided to give us a procedural motion, and we have executed that. You will allow me, Engineer, before you take to the mic, I have a member who is critical to these proceedings, and I'd like for her to introduce herself. This is the Gen Z representative to the Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation, the specially elected member. Kindly introduce yourself. I also have a member who I would like to introduce himself. Kindly, the Honourable Member for Keyo South.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Dr. Gideon Kimayo, Member of Parliament, Keyo South Constituency, and member of this committee. Thank you, Chair.
The Honourable Member for Uriri.
Thank you, Chair. I think, Chair, you needed a break than all of us, clearly. But let me proceed because I wanted the nominee to be a bit fresh. First of all, let me say he's taken us through his very rich history in the commercial corporate space, which we hope will come in handy should you proceed to the next stage. We have 2 state corporations under the department, which is the KBC, I know you've spoken about it, and the Postal Corporation of Kenya. What would be your immediate turnaround strategy? What would be your immediate turnaround strategy for some of these 2 big ones? Beyond what people keep on saying, oh, you know, they are asset rich, we sell their assets, because I don't think selling their assets and putting back the money is a turnaround strategy in itself. What would be your turnaround strategy around these 2 state corporations to bring them back to life and keep people at work and have them as a going concern? That's the first question.
Honorable Engineer Mark, you mentioned two agencies in your introduction, but only ended up mentioning one. Which are these two agencies that you want?
I have said KBC and Postal Corporation. Yes, I've said the two agencies is KBC and Postal Corporation.
Thank you, Honorable Nyamita, Engineer. Through the chair, if successful and approved, these two corporations, which in a portfolio sense are actually in the red, unfortunately, will actually become my problem child. They will actually become the ones I have to nurture to get back to their feet, to get back to their original mandate as established. And Honorable Nyamita, who is actually also a neighboring county from this side of the country we come from, mentioned specifically turnaround. Indeed, when a corporation is in the state that the two state agencies are actually in, the only solution is turnaround. It's just like having a patient in ICU. You basically have to really have intensive care, inject with the right medication and sort of oversee it until that patient goes back again to life. That's really the analogy I can use for KPC. Specifically, Honorable Nyamita, I will look at three elements. I mean, if you talk about how do you turn around an enterprise, whether private or public, you have to look at the people. And that's why I spoke earlier that fundamentals around the people, salaries, and basic enablements must be sorted. And it's something that we'll actually look and engage with the state agencies, other related state agencies to ensure the people issues are actually no longer issues. Number two, we focus on the core business. And KBC's core business is actually content, not land, not buildings. Any resource, so you sort out the human talent first, that the people are actually the right people and they're actually remunerated. Number two, to actually ensure that the resources we get in a constrained environment with austerity measures are actually being used for content, which is actually their core business. Remember, it's a national state broadcaster whose work is first to project national values and ethos and also project government policy quickly. There's a challenge around return on investment. And in fact, it says because they're struggling to survive, they've now resorted to the screaming headlines and all sorts of crazy stuff, as Mheshimiwa puts it, that is actually manifest by their publications. My approach to this is that through the chair, first of all, media is actually a liberal sector. It's not controlled. So operators are both private investors and also public enterprises like KBC. So the first instance, the media are actually a business. And one will expect that they actually have their own business avenues and business plans that address the segment they're actually dealing with. That's just beginning premise. Number two, if the media is then interacting, for example, with my government or other sagas that I'm actually involved, and part of this friction is, for example, as he says, that money is not in circulation because we owe that money or are made aware that that's part of the problem, I think the first point is engage and understand what the issue is. Because like you say, when you hear this noise, then there is something causing it. So engage and hear what is actually going on, what's causing this. Number two, if it's established that there is actually dues or commercial transactions that have actually not been fulfilled in terms of payments, is something I will actually seize and support that we do that as a matter of priority, because the noise in the media is diverting everything else, all the good work that the government is doing, so that we actually address that problem child and actually then step up and say, you've been investing in decaying equipment and technology is running ahead of you. You better also innovate and basically see where technology is going, so do not disadvantage yourself by being, for example, analog or very operational and sort of conservative when in fact technology is run ahead. And it's continuing engagement.
On your question, a very key question for sector, maybe, Engineer Nyamita, if you would allow me, I would put an addendum to the question. To your understanding, Stephen, and with your knowledge, you can declare if you have any knowledge or not. With your understanding and knowledge of how the media houses are set up today, do you think that the media model that is operating, especially in our traditional media houses, is sustainable? If it is sustainable, then what is your intervention as the State Department? If it is not sustainable, what would be your intervention on the unsustainability of the model as it exists? Because whether they are private or public, the media is the fourth estate. It has its place in democracy, and as such, we cannot have you presiding over the death of such an important agency in democracy. Honorable Nyamita?
Yeah, I think you can go for the chair's question, then I will do a follow-up.
Thank you, through the chair. So, yes, Chair, I'm actually familiar with the setup of media houses because I've actually been engaged and sort of collaborated with them in many instances. There was always a traditional setup where media house, of course, obtains alliances. They've got a studio, either for live coverage, they've got a studio for production of deliberate scheduled coverage, and then behind it, they've got the content department that actually generates content. If it's a free-to-air channel, like many of our broadcasters, then they also have newsmen that gather news, which is part of the content, and they also license other products from third parties, locally and overseas. So that's basically on the content focus is the ecosystem. The rest is finance, administration, and all that. So that, as you rightly say, Chair, and I think you're apt into where it's going, that whole physical infrastructure, that whole brick and mortar establishment is gone. Now someone can literally broadcast from their phone sitting somewhere in Uriri, where Mheshimiwa Nyamita comes from. Literally, provided you've got a digital access and good broadband, you can literally broadcast using any of these touch points that are available and literally compete with a channel that is established now with a studio with all these overheads. So that is actually the reality. And Chairman, that has been brought by the change in technology. So what do media houses do to actually ensure they survive post this disruption? And I think one of the...
Don't advise the media houses.
Yes.
The question here is, what would be your intervention
Okay.
on occasion that you occupy this office?
So first, Chair, my role in this position is first of all to give a listening ear and engage, to understand the problems of the sector. I don't want to come in and assume I know the issues. Number two, once I have listened and understood the issues, is also to find out, so what are you doing about it? Because the media are either private, public, and they have their mandates. Number three, what are you doing about the disruption? That's part of leadership, exactly to ask the right questions, even as you find solutions. Number four, what enablement or support do you need to transit? Because there's a digital disruption. The whole world is being shaken by digital disruption. That is not just on media, it's disrupting everything to other sectors. And then clearly engage as a partner to say, look, we're all in this space, be aware where the world is going, interact and actually say, let's be seized and prepare for this disruption and ensure that we're actually not being very traditional when, in fact, technology and behavior has moved ahead. So it's more engagement and really interaction, obviously sensitizing them around where the world is going. And I used to see a lot of that coming from international conferences. Thank you, Chair.
Nominee, I think just added to that a very line of thought. So technology then has allowed the proliferation of very many TVs, radio stations, and different channels of communication. This is really posing a challenge in terms of how they are regulated. What's your proposal in terms of regulation to ensure that all the platforms then adhere and there's fairness in terms of regulation? And maybe just a secondary arm to that one, value for money. The biggest scramble is the money for advertisement in government. And so even your predecessor, I remember one of my colleagues already mentioned, there was a controversial letter that he did write instructing that, advertisement should not go to one media house. But that for me is not even the biggest concern. It's a value for money that government gets, especially when it is advertising. Because PCK used to host the Audit Bureau of Circulation, which has since died, or it is defunct. So today, do you think government is getting value when they place an advert in a newspaper? How do they confirm that, for example, Nation distributes the number of papers that it so claims, or Standard? When we know medias that have come up, for example, you'll find maybe even KJ here has 2 million followers on his platforms. And that can give actually more value than maybe the Nation newspaper, if you're talking about audience as it is. So my specific question is, the proliferation of these different channels is posing a different challenge in terms of regulation. Number two, the second question is on the value for money. And what would be a proposition when, if you get into this position, to ensure that government really gets its value for money?
Thank you, Honorable Nyamita, through the chair. I think the proliferation of the media houses and channels is basically through the success of the Kenya government and the sector enablers to actually enable as much establishment as possible media, especially following digital migration. So that's a consequence of our success. In terms of regulation, there is the law that is established to actually oversight and regulate TV and radio channels, which the Honorable mentioned, but also there is obviously a conscious effort to try to also now extend some sort of a site in terms of OTT, over the top, the internet players that are actually not traditional. That is work in progress. As I've seen, the government has actually made certain statements, for example, demanding for physical establishment for overseas service providers who are actually exporting services via the internet, to try to ensure that if they're making revenue or they're actually playing in Kenya, we've got someone who can hold into account. So in terms regulation, the regulations cover traditional media. There is now a move to try to work on the online space, which is actually not always as tidy. But there's proposals around fair regulation that also ensures that the online operators do not have an overly big advantage over the traditional operators. So that's really where the regulator plays as referee. And I think there is some work in progress there. And if successfully and approved, it's online regulation, online media is one of the things that this committee, in line with all this digital stuff, that will actually be seized to see how do we do with this new emergent technology.
So, sorry to interrupt you, and I don't mean to distort your line of thought. Forget about what is happening. I am asking you, as Stephen, what is your proposition? Because, you know, government is proposing that if this content that is generated in the US, we are asking them to come set up a physical office so that we can get a hold of them. Really, and, you know, technology is moving. They don't need an office. For example, Starlink doesn't have even a local office, and it is all over. So where we are moving with technology, even if government says you have to come and domesticate, it's not possible because then we are moving. So I am asking you, as a candidate, what would be a proposition in terms of regulation in the current space as technologies continues to advance?
Thank you, thank you.
Let's bring it home.
Yeah.
There are a number of models possible.
Yeah.
Model number one would be the multi-choice model. You understand multi-choice quite well, where this is an international player, but they establish a local office that becomes the office that can attend to any issue that arises locally and ends up even having its own franchises locally. The second model is what Engineer Nyamita, he himself, with very good understanding of the space in broadcasting and the terrestrial space, where the example he gives of Starlink just takes advantage of maybe the loopholes that in the technology that exists, or maybe the lack of regulations altogether, and we have the Starlink model. The third possible model is the Tanzania model, where they will rely on existing laws, for example, company laws, where if their company laws say that you cannot operate in the country without a physical local office, then you do so. What Honorable Nyamita is asking, to your mind as Isaboke, what would that model, what would be that model that Kenya follows, especially in light of the speed at which new and emerging medias are innovating, developing, and deploying in the country? Honorable Nyamita, am I in line with what you say?
You've almost given him a leakage.
These are models that exist.
But that's okay.
Thank you, Honorable Nyamita, and through the chair. Like I said earlier, media and technology is actually fast evolving. It's actually rapidly changing and sometimes running ahead of establishments. So, first of all, as a premise, there is the law that governs media regulation at the moment, the structures under the different establishment and licensing framework that allows, for example, how do you establish a TV channel, a radio channel. That is already covered, and I think that we just have to review as part of the KICA Act to ensure it's progressive and is also enabling them to compete in the digital space. Coming specifically to the chairman's example, which my engineer, Honorable, actually did allude to almost being a leakage, it is actually the case, Honorable Chair, that in fact media operations are not homogeneous. They're not just one generic one. Because of the different technology platforms, because of the different sort of offerings and the ability, especially online, you then have different options you can offer. There's no one right way. The way to then approach this, and you did put me on the spot, Chair, is basically that the role of the regulator and the role of the policymakers, where the PS's role, if approved, falls, is actually first to scan the environment. So, like you all observe, the environment is changing. Number two, get what's going on across the world in this OTT space, online consumption and online shift with media. Number three, ensure that we empower our own Kenyans to be participating in that new economy, because there's no need of actually importing those services, TikTok and all that, overseas or with no sort of local content or no local activity. Number four is to then ensure eventually whether you get a foreign operator here or a local initiated online service, that as a fundamental, they actually are obeying the basic sort of regulatory requirements of a broadcaster. So, for example, you don't expect any abuse of that service. They cannot be misused for any other thing, just like the normal broadcaster. Number four, which is last, is actually to say you start incentivizing and actually saying to the traditional operators, look, Jesus moved, things have happened, what support do you need to establish, for example, online presence, which is actually one of the cheapest thing you can do. You basically need an internet address or set up a website for your company, and you start now competing operationally with these OTT services. And in fact, to give credit to the local media houses, many of them now have an alternative online channel where when you've got a broadcast happening linear, you go online, even if you're in the US or you're anywhere in the world, you can actually follow what's going on here back home. So that shift is important. And in terms of regulation and establishment, I think we have to be agnostic. That's what we call agnostic. You're going to have to actually set rules that actually cover both your traditional linear broadcasters and actually your new media or OTT operators. So you then have an agnostic approach to regulation. Just a final comment, things like Starlink, and in fact, the other company that you mentioned, it's actually an imported service. So globally, imported service is a normal thing. What some jurisdictions have done, including Kenya and other markets, is actually to ensure they've got landing rights. So we're not forcing you to actually establish, but you then have to seek a license to allow you to land, because the thing is coming from the sky, from satellite into country. You're actually seeking revenue from here. You're making put it through, you agree on a fee. So it's a way that you can actually ensure this digital version of these arts, and they're actually given out equitably to willing partners.
I will not take you further on that. Rights for airing important events like, international sports, and you're coming from that background. What's your opinion? How should we be distributing such rights? For example, we have AFCON coming up, World Cup, and the likes.
No, thank you, Honorable KPC Act. Part of it is actually to disseminate information of public interest, including government information. So KPC is then given as a right, and Honorable Nyamita just put a right. And I have actually had the privilege of going for about 4 World Cups live, and one of it, with the privilege, we actually were with the Honorable Chair in his capacity. World Cup, again, the way the rights, FIFA actually apportions the rights. World Cups, you'll actually watch KPC. You might have a challenge of the quality if some other people are broadcasting in HD and the KPC one is probably tethering. That might be the issue. But otherwise, rights are actually, national interest events are actually one that the public should actually access, and it's covered under our regulation. And it's something I will actually encourage to be maintained.
Chair, I'll ask my next question in the final round.
Thank you, Honorable Nyamita, for your magnanimity. I want to give this opportunity to the Honorable County MP for Isiolo. Mheshimiwa Mumina, engage the nominee.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. My questions will largely touch on young people.
Thank you.
As you know, the digital world presents both opportunities and challenges for youth, offering access to information, education, and connection, but also exposing them to risks like cyberbullying, privacy violation, and harmful content. So with that in mind, I want to ask this. What is your stance on digital surveillance and privacy rights in Kenya? Because we want to increase opportunities for the youth in this space and minimize the challenges and the risks that they get exposed to, because it's largely their space. So my first question, what is your stance on digital surveillance and privacy rights in Kenya?
Thank you. Through the chair, the honourable member for Isiolo, that I congratulate for actually representing ably the youth in this honourable house, is asking about, obviously, that youth are actually very apt in this digital space. They're very, very active. And indeed, in the process, some of them might fall sort of prey into either cyber crimes, cyber attacks, and bullying, as she actually states. And then she then turns and says, what is my opinion around digital surveillance or digital stamping surveillance, which is basically a way of tracking activity online. First of all, the Honorable Chair, to say, like I said earlier, media freedom and the use of any of these communication avenues is absolutely protected in the Constitution. So the youth are actually properly exercising their right to information, to access information, and I know the government is trying to ensure that through digital platforms, they actually get them as low as possible. That's why the internet, digital internet touch points are actually being taken to the counties. Number two, if in the course of use, and I think it's a very good way of youth using their energy and creativity, in the course of use, some of them are actually falling prey into attacks. That's where government comes in. That's where the law enforcement comes in. And there's different ways of actually doing it. If you actually look, if it's a digital platform, a digital pooling, you then have to use digital means to actually A, detect, B, counter or arrest. And it's a case where we need a balance between privacy, because the youth who are actually exercising and using these platforms are absolutely entitled to privacy, as is actually stated in the Data Protection Act. So their own activities, including any personal information, is protected. Even as the government or any of the centers like the one we have at the CA is actually checking for cybercrime and bullying, we must protect privacy. Number two, if we then find that our own youth are being molested, and we've also seen sometimes in the newspapers all sorts of scamming and attacks, I think it's incumbent on the cybercrime unit, which is actually a multi-agency unit covering all our state agencies that cover security and also communications, that A, they've got the right tools to check, B, they deal with only cybercrime, not interfering with the use of the online platforms. So to Honorable Chair, we have to balance between letting the youth use the channels freely without being infringed, and then B, ensure that we're protecting them in case there's any threats of infringement. It's really a balance.
Thank you. My second question is, how will the State Department support the creative economy, especially young innovators in the digital space? And this is where we are thinking of increasing the opportunities for them. So how are we going to support the creative economy and innovation in that space?
Okay. Thank you, through the chair. I think the youth are obviously the current, not the future, but they're really the current most important stakeholder in the country. In terms of the state enabling the youth to actually enhance the creative economy and participate in that space, our role as a regulator and government and policy is actually to ensure that we roll out the commitment of the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto in terms of a digital superhighway, that in fact the 100,000 kilometer fiber optic is actually fulfilled. And in terms of the digital economy, the last mile, particularly where the youth, because the last mile is where you make contact between the consumer and the usage, where the government has also proposed 1,450 digital hubs based at the wards, are actually all actualized, and that there are digital Wi-Fi hotspots, because once you have Wi-Fi, you're actually online. And number two, supplemented by private network coverage, where you've got proper network in the rural areas, 3G, 4G. Once that network is established, as I said earlier, my role is, for example, to use the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication and other private training agencies to empower youth with, for example, how do you produce content? How do you even do a user-generated content? How do you actually make your content attractive to go viral? And I said earlier, one of my thoughts is actually switch the KMC from being a physical brick and mortar just based physically at South Sea to a digital or online-based college where they can literally train across the country to interested youth, and in the process get many more enrolled users, and in that way you then empower them to actually use. The last one is actually around tax and also any other incentives. Just make sure, for example, the usage of digital hubs is actually put at the lowest cost denominator, whether it's a Wi-Fi enablement, with actually access to those digital hubs. They have to be as affordable as possible to ensure our youth, who necessarily are actually trying to establish, have access to this information.
Through the chair, Mr. Stephen, you really made a good attempt on answering that. But I represent an area where telecommunication infrastructure is not really well established. We are still struggling with cellular connection. We've not really gotten to a space where we can enjoy digital technology and the space that we are talking about, where you are now elaborately explaining how you will have you supported to grow in that economy. What will you do with young people who come from such an area where there are no roads, there are no telecommunication network, there's nothing actually to connect them? Will you just leave them there? Or what intention do you have for them? It's a follow-up question.
Thank you. Thank you. Through the chair, the Honourable Member for Isiolo asks a very, very relevant question around our ability or commitment to actually be equitable and cover the whole country. She raises questions around areas where you actually literally do not have cell phone coverage. You actually do not have any of this digital tech that you're talking about. Honourable Member, the people from those marginalized areas are also Kenyans. The youth from those areas also deserve equal sort of opportunity to be able to access these services. What I'll do, if approved and successful, is actually, like I said earlier, engage with the Universal Service Fund, which is actually sitting with the regulator, to actually say, and obviously ensure that I'm engaging with the committee to actually ensure that I get details around those unserved areas. Once we understand them and where the gaps are, the intention is actually to use that USF, and that's what USF was established for, to ensure that we can actually be able to establish access of those services through other means. For example, via satellite, if physically it's long distances and all that, there is actually other technology-enabled means to activate those networks and ensure that those same Kenyans and youth, for that matter, have an equal privilege and access like the youth from urban centers and other privileged areas. So it's a commitment, Honorable Member, I'll make to follow through.
The Honorable Member is keen to know on practical steps. Yes. You might not be able to gloss over that because your office existed. There have been PSs there. USF exists. It has been funded for many years, but still her corner of the world is not covered. So beyond the generalities, what actual steps you think are required to make sure that USF covers her?
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, I think my approach to this issue, if approved and successful, is actually to engage, first of all, the member and the other members who might be affected in the same, so I have all the facts. Number two, the USF falls under a saga that's actually under my broad ministry. I then will engage through the board to actually say, what is your plan? So you're giving a chance to actually understand what's going on. Number three, to say, despite what you have and over the years, there are certain areas which are actually marginalized and nothing has been done. The USF is accountable to this committee. It's not extraneous to this committee. I will use my administrative overreach to engage them, to sensitize them around some of the gaps which are real, and actually we debate and agree on an intervention. If we then agree that they now have to change, because everything else has an opportunity further to actually be addressed. If, for example, that there is a gap between where the USF is actually focusing on and where members of the committee or other Kenyans are actually demanding, we bring them to an accountability arena. We probably face this committee, accompanied by myself, to this committee. We explain ourselves, and if possible, because an interaction, we eventually have to engage and switch, especially to serve public interest. Committee is not, the USF is not there to serve itself, but to serve Kenyans. And Kenyans are represented by the honorable members around this table.
Sure, Chair, thanks. Just be sure that we'll be keen on that once you're successful. Not anything else, but particularly.
You're welcome, honorable member. My doors will remain open.
Sure. Yeah. How will you address issues like misinformation, fake news, cybercrime, which are prevalent in the digital space? It's really bothersome. I think everybody here is also a victim of that, as members of parliament and in other spaces. Yeah. The issues of misinformation, fake news, cybercrime, all that. Yeah. In this space, yeah. These are the challenges we are facing. How will you address it?
Thank you. Through the Chair, the points that the honorable member picks is actually as a result of our success in actually digitizing and actually digital access across. And obviously, many of the users going online. She points out three aspects where there's actually a bit of a challenge: misinformation, fake news or deep fakes, and also cybercrime. Honorable member, through the Chair, this is where using digitally enabled surveillance has to come in. It's no longer the physical policeman wielding a rungu or wielding a gun that is actually going to check who are these people attacking us. It's actually using digital enablements where there is cybercrime and misuse of Computer Act covers to ensure that that law covers all these emergent threats. And number two, the law still respects freedom of speech and media. Number three, that we actually empower them to ensure that they intervene where people either been abused or cyber attacked. And to ensure that if that's the case, then of course there's a consequence. And that's where the Computer Misuse and Cyber Crimes Act comes in.
It's an important question she asked, and maybe I would put a rejoinder to it. I'll confess that when we advertised that you're coming here, we got quite a number of people with interest. And one of the people who sent in a question is actually a journalist. And to Honorable Mumina's question, this journalist avers that the citizen are not always the victim. In some cases, the citizens themselves are offenders. So to Honorable Mumina's question, how do you think government should address citizen offenders who, under the guise of citizen journalism, end up causing crimes? Some may not even be under the purview of already existing laws. There might be gaps that need to be filled. But to such, you being a government official will be a target. Your government will be a target. Government plans will be targets. And there will be so much of that misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, the fake news, and now with the onset of AI, even the deep fakes, where an individual will produce a hologram of one Mr. Stephen Isaboke. And it will be looking like you. They will use your voice, and they will put it out there. The question the Honorable Mumina is asking, because it is two-way, how do you think the government can well attend to the issue of offenses that are coming from citizens who are posing as citizen journalists and then ending up spoiling it for professional journalists, but even offending other citizens?
Thank you, Honorable Chair, through you. I think this is actually obviously a challenge with emerging technology. And with technology then, you've got a case where maybe regulations are not catching up. To deal with this case where it's actually a reverse, where the shoe is in the other foot, the citizens are the ones attacking leaders, attacking government, or attacking those in authority. Again, the same approach. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. So we have to sensitize the citizens that while we allow for freedom, that freedom does not go into abusing or alleging or making these claims that actually damage people's reputation, or in fact harasses or misinforms and misleads the public. What I'll then agitate for is obviously review the current Computer Abuse and Cybercrime Act, just to make sure it's a two-way. It's talking to us, not restraining, but checking for any crimes. Plus also surveilling for public misuse of this. The first point, Chair, and I, if approved, will actually be in charge of public communication, is to enlighten the public around the consequences of misuse of computer sets, including their own laptops and even phones. That you need to use your communication responsibly. And we also sensitize around the new laws or the new regulations that will actually govern, so that we safeguard the citizens, but we also safeguard the leaders that are prone to abuse. If, finally, Chair, that people persist, and society will actually be an average. There's something we call average curve. You'll get normally well-behaved people, middle, and then the criminals. We then absolutely have to enforce, especially if the criminal activities are actually identified, established, and as per the law. Those will then be pursued, because even the same citizens might become actually victims of the same attackers. So it's actually a two-way. It's something we have to enforce to protect, the public at large, in the public interest.
Honorable Mumina.
My last question is on what measures you will take to uphold ethics and integrity in the Ministry of Operation and the ICT sector at large. It's about integrity and ethics.
Okay. Thank you, through the Chair. I think Chapter 6 of the Constitution spells out leadership and integrity for public leaders, and generally as an ethos for the public. So guided by the Chapter 6 requirements for leadership, I intend, first of all, to ensure that our people are aware that our Constitution is very clear about leadership integrity. Number two, it's not just a mere claim based on the Constitution, it's around how we operate at the ministry. So at the ministry, as an accounting and authorized officer, I will be in charge of the financial management of the ministry. As the accounting officer, I will be oversighting budget making and, in fact, also working through other avenues, including things like procurement and liaising with other ministries. So what I will do is I have to live what I say. Live what I say, so that it does show me, we can see our leader says and does as he says. Number two, hold people into account, so that as an individual, because integrity is personal, integrity and accountability is personal, each one of us, and especially the higher you go, the higher the expectation, that each one of us hold ourselves into account in terms of our decision making, in terms of our fairness. Are we treating our people in the right way? Are we being nationalist in terms of our approach? Are we being equitable in terms of the decisions? Are we actually being sort of respectful about even some of the decisions we make, even if they're actually not the right ones? So eventually, through my conduct as an executive in the ministry, I show them how I live by those ethos. I also sensitize them to an extent why it's important for all of us to live by that.
Honorable Mina, I thank you. The only people standing between us and the lunch break are two members, and I would want to allow them to engage you in this order. I'll call up the Honorable Member for KU South. Honorable Member, kindly engage your nominee.
Thank you, Chair. Nominee, first of all, congratulations for being nominated. In your preparation for this interview, I'm sure you must have, touched on something about KBC. That is the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. What can you tell this committee about the current financial status of KBC?
Thank you. Through the chair, I obviously have not been approved and appointed, so I do not have the privileged access to internal information. But what I've seen in public domain that I can actually report back is that at the moment, KBC, which is actually a state broadcaster, which is actually the premier channel for government information dissemination, is actually in dire straits. There is issues around salaries, and those have come out in media reports. There's issues around statutory deductions and statutory contribution, where they're actually in arrears. There's issues of historical debt, where they actually have legacy debts, some dating back to many years. There's also issues around, the quality and the competitiveness of the channel, to the extent, I think, through media reports, that it's actually lost the sort of a very strong position it had. And matters around staff morale and staff engagement also seem to be an issue.
Thank you. Chair, so through the chair, so you are telling, you are in a position to tell that through your preparation that you are aware that KBC has issues with finances. Is that a yes or no?
It's a yes.
Thank you. Yes. Are you aware of any deal between KBC and Court TV? Yes or no? Just yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. What is the nature of this deal?
So, through the chair, I actually, at the very beginning, took the Honorable House Committee through the whole relationship between KBC and Malchus Africa and Malchus Kenya and Go TV, and distinguished the two operations.
For the sake of this question,
yes.
Without belaboring the point,
yes.
Answer it to the member's satisfaction,
okay.
Because unfortunately,
yes.
he was not in the room at that point. But don't be verbose. Just direct to the satisfy
Thank you.
The interviewer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Just be brief, okay. Very brief.
Okay, I will. So thank you, Chair. Through you, I will be very brief. Go TV was a company that was 100% fully funded by Malchus Africa. KPC did not contribute any penny. Then Malchus Africa proposed a partnership between Malchus Africa and KPC. Discussions happened for over 10 years, and for various reasons, including state regulatory reasons, KBC declined to take up the partnership. Eventually, they declined taking up the shares. So as we talk, there's actually no relationship between KBC and GoTV, except a co-location where each one of them hosts different sites. And in fact, KBC is sitting on more GoTV sites and GoTV is sitting on KBC sites. That's all I can say about this.
Thank you. You said there were negotiations for many years. And between these years, was there anything that GoTV was using from KBC?
So through the chair again, because it's kind of a leading question without specifics, I will be unable to kind of specify, but they, in the course of discussions, there were obviously offers made between the two parties as they were negotiating.
In terms of assets, between all these years that you talked about, at any given point, was there a scenario that GoTV utilized some of the resources, whether assets, cash, that belongs to KBC?
So
I just want yes or no.
Yes, but I can
Thank you.
Okay.
So it's a yes. When was GoTV registered?
It's anything about 2012, just in the advent of digital migration.
So you can tell this committee that GoTV was registered in Kenya 2012. That's your answer, 2012.
Chair, I plead for protection. The honorable member is asking specific dates, and I'm no longer even an employee of GoTV, so to be able to say specific dates and all that is a big challenge because I'm actually outside. I can speak to specific seasons. I do not want to be on record having affirmed yes, no, and then I'm found at fault because of dates.
Point of order, Chair.
Just hold on, Honorable Kifasu. The honorable member is posing a question, and to your mind, if you do not have specifics, you're covered, Stephen. You do not have to. You do not have to make a specific question, a specific answer to an issue you are not, privy to. But there's a point of order here, Honorable
Chair.
Member.
Chair, on the issue of 2012, in the self-declaration form, GoTV, Isaboke was a director from 2011 to present time, so he knows much about GoTV.
He says that it would be unfair to pin him on specific dates. So I'd wanted, yes. So I would want Honorable Gideon. You're on a line of questioning. You're well in your line, and he's also protected as a nominee. Please continue with the line of questioning.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the reaction. And there is a reason why I'm asking these questions. It will guide the committee on other questions. So the nominee has told us that GoTV Kenya was registered in Kenya around 2012.
That one you can't pin him down on it.
I'm not pinning him.
Yes.
He said around. He said around. Yeah. That is his answer.
Proceed, Honorable Member.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. You said around 2012, which is okay. And just to say why I'm answering this, we have the CR12 of GoTV Kenya, and we'll give to the Chair, and we'll know when it was registered, so that we can get the facts. Between 2006 up to today, what has been your role, whether direct or indirect, at GoTV Kenya?
Honorable Chair, can I ask, did you ask 2006?
Yes.
Okay. Through the Chair, I was never anywhere near MultiChoice in 2006. I first was employed as General Manager for MultiChoice Kenya, starting 2nd January 2008. That was my reporting date for MultiChoice, so I know nothing about 2006. Number two, I have actually documented my position in the business from the 2008 when I joined in as the first Kenyan General Manager for the business, where I did work for 4 years. Then I moved on to become a regional director, and there were many other people, Kenyans and also even expatriates, working in the business. And by the way, MultiChoice is a multinational. It's not a personal company. I was simply an employee. So I then rose to become regional director, which I think, through the chair, is not always given. When you get a Kenyan being appointed to manage other countries, that brings resources and support to the country because you end up employing more people. I was privileged to be regional director. Then finally, I then was again promoted to become group. In the process, I have grown, and in some of those instances, I will have been a director. In some of those instances, I'm a group executive, but many other people involved. In the particular document it refers to, I am not a sole director. You'll see probably a list of a whole long director because that company is multinational, governed by obviously, no more corporate governance.
Thank you. Are you a director or a shareholder at GoTV Kenya?
Yes.
How many shares do you have?
30%.
How did you pay for these shares? How did you purchase these shares?
Thank you. Through the chair, once I'd left Malchus Group as an executive, an opportunity arose because Malchus had also been looking for a local partner unsuccessfully, as I stated, for a long time, that as a businessman I was offered, we had mutual discussions, and an opportunity arose for me to invest in these shares. I then went through an arm's length negotiation, and if you look at the CR12, I think the nominal capital is about 17 million. So for me to be able to acquire the 30% shares, I paid, and I've got evidence, of 5.2 million to acquire the 30% shares. I actually paid to Malchus Group Treasury. In essence, I then became a shareholder with that acquisition, and it was self-funded.
Who are the other shareholders of GoTV Kenya?
It is actually Malchus Africa representatives.
So the only shareholders of MultiChoice Kenya is only MultiChoice Africa and you only?
Sorry, through the chair, I need protection. There is a mix-up between Malchus Kenya and GoTV.
Yeah, sorry, I mixed myself up.
Yeah.
Let me repeat my question. You are a shareholder of GoTV Kenya?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Who are the other shareholders of GoTV Kenya?
The other partner shareholder is actually Malchus Africa, which is a group company which is quoted.
Okay. Yeah. And you only?
Yes.
Thank you. Does GoTV Kenya pay taxes to get the Kenyan government?
So, through the chair, I do not run the day-to-day operations of the business. The business is actually operationally ongoing.
I just need a yes or you say you don't know.
Yes.
So it pays taxes?
Like another corporate system, it has to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you know a gentleman called Waitaka Wayenya?
Yes, I know him.
Who is he and what was your relationship?
So Waitaka Wayenya, as I know him, he was actually a former MD of Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. He initially was editor-in-chief at KPC. Then he came up to actually become a managing director of KPC, where he stayed until he retired and left the business. So my relationship with Waitaka was actually bigger business between
that's enough. That's enough. In the year 2016, 2017, were there correspondence of emails between you and Waitaka?
If he was still the MD of KPC,
that's a yes or no.
And Malchus,
just a yes
I will have corresponded.
No.
I will have corresponded. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The government of Kenya in the year 2017-18 through the PS then, I think Itamere or something. I don't remember his name. Yeah, Itamere.
He was known as PS Sami Itamere.
Sami Itamere. There is an email that the former MD of KBC wrote to Itamere. And the then PS was not, okay with the relationship, the deal between KBC and GoTV Kenya. And that email was shared to you by the then KBC MD. Yes or no?
So
yes or no?
I need to recollect
it's just a yes
referring to 2016, but it was normal for me to interact
it's
with
just a yes or
Taka and also the PS.
Just yes or no?
Just hold on. That was not a yes or no question, Honorable.
I will come to the next question.
Okay. give him some latitude.
Well, you will tell me whether it is true or false, or say I won't answer.
We also want to benefit from your line of questioning. We want to...
Chair, allow me, like I allowed other members, to proceed with my way of questioning. From then, if there will be gaps, members are free to, pick it up.
We appreciate
Because for me, I want facts. I want facts only. So I'm just asking you, were there emails, correspondence between you and the former MD of KBC, Waitaka?
There were routine emails on business correspondence going on throughout. Okay. Honorable Chair,
it's just a yes or no or pass.
Because some of the questions are leading.
I want you to answer to the best of your ability.
Yes.
Just take the question, answer it to the best of your ability.
Thank you.
In fact, the questioning is in good faith.
Thank you.
There is no self-incrimination intended here. Yeah. The member is asking to arrive to a place.
Correct.
And there's a point of concern.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think you're right. Whereas a member, I think it's important to allow the member to go with his line of thought without necessarily also subjecting the nominee to, let him answer. Because you see, if they're saying with very limited, because if you put him yes, no, that might also push him really to a corner. Just give him a bit of latitude also to answer. But make your answers short and precise. That's the thing.
Chair, thank you, Honorable Member. But Chair, my questions just requires a yes or no. Simple. Yes or pass. I don't know.
On that one, if you're calling for a recollection, it might not be a yes or no.
You can say I don't remember.
The nominee might be in a place where they do not recall on the specific incidences of a date. So continue with your line of questioning.
Chair, if you're asking me, are you Gideon Kimaya? Either yes.
Gideon Kimayo, where were you on the 13th of September?
I don't remember.
2014.
I don't remember.
Exactly.
Something like that.
So it's not a yes or no. So it's not a yes or no.
So that's why I've given him the latitude of, if he doesn't remember, he says I don't remember.
So
don't explain.
Continue.
Simple. Thank you, Chair. So there was an audit by a consultant, which was picked by KBC in consultation with GoTV. And there is an email which the former MD of KBC wrote to you, and you had a consultation. In this email, the government of Kenya, through the PS, was not comfortable with the arrangement of KBC getting shares at GoTV Kenya because of the frequencies. Did you, at any point in that period, ask the MD of KBC that to give you a report of the audit before it is sent to the PS?
Through Honorable Chair, I cannot recollect that specific one.
Thank you. How many frequencies did GoTV receive from KBC?
Through the Chair, that's an operational question. I do not have the facts around the frequencies because that was an operational side of the business.
Did GoTV receive any frequencies from KBC?
Honorable Chair, yes, but there was a process that actually...
So yes, there were frequencies?
Yes.
So yes, there were frequencies?
Yes.
But you don't know how many?
Because it's operational. The frequencies, you actually keep accessing them as you actually launch in sites. That's how this terrestrial space happens.
Okay. Yeah. Are you able to quantify how much those frequencies were worth?
Honorable Chair, through you, I hope that's an open question.
Sure.
What then happened is that at the beginning, at inception, as the two partners were negotiating, they launched the service on a trial basis. Down the line, the regulations changed. From the digital migration litigations, where the Supreme Court allowed free establishment of more digital platforms, including Signet and others, Then other operators were allowed to be licensed, and GoTV was granted its own license. In the process, the regulator then assigned GoTV frequencies directly. So while at the beginning it was a trial phase, where they actually were trying to get a partnership which was genuine, to work together as they work together on the multi side, the GoTV one did not work, and in the process the regulations changed.
Nominee. So my question is...
Hold on, Honorable Gideon, we want to benefit as a committee from your line of questioning. Tell me, what was the fundamental difference between the frequencies that GoTV had post the change of regulation and pre? How many, if you are not able to quantify, you can tell us fundamentally the difference between the arrangement pre the migration and post migration.
Yes, through you, Chair and honorable members, what happened is that initially the service for GoTV was very limited, just about a couple of cities, maybe about 5 or 7 cities, and that the whole trial continued. Once this digital migration happened, and in fact we are now allowed to operate, the CA then allocated frequencies to GoTV alongside all the other applicants for frequencies. So essentially, once you are licensed directly to the CA, it ceased to actually require, for example, that GoTV will go to a partner like KBC to actually get frequencies. That was actually enabled following the Supreme Court ruling that allowed more than one digital carrier network.
Could this be part of the frequencies that you referred to earlier when you were talking about co-location?
So, through the chair, co-location was sort of there from the beginning and continues actually up to now. What changed, Chair, is the way frequencies were assigned. At the beginning, by law, you could only get frequencies before the regulations changed by Signet. And that's what the partnership that they actually did a trial. When the regulations changed and liberalized signal carriage, the regulator and their correspondences on that from the Communications Authority then notified and said, you will be eligible to be allocated your own frequencies. We applied, they applied, paid a fee, and they were allocated frequencies. We then changed the dynamic.
Honorable Kimayu.
So you are not able to establish the worth of those frequencies?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How much loan did GoTV Kenya receive from MultiChoice Africa Limited?
Through the chair, I really cannot have those numbers. Those are very specific numbers. Operationally, MultiChoice Africa, being the parent company of GoTV Kenya, will fund the operations because as a startup, they need money to actually operate. The company could not sustain
So you are aware there was a loan?
Very, very normal between a multinational and a local entity.
Between GoTV Kenya and MultiChoice Africa?
With MultiChoice Africa lending
there was a loan.
For operations, yes.
Out of this loan, who was supposed to pay this loan then? Just MultiChoice Africa, or there was another entity?
Thank you, through the chair. The loan is actually intercompany loan. The group company called MultiChoice Africa loaning a subsidiary, GoTV Kenya, to operate. So if the loan was due, then it will be GoTV Kenya from its operations raising enough money to actually repay the parent companies. It will be GoTV Kenya repaying MultiChoice Africa.
Are you aware of any deal that was struck so that that loan was paid partly by one, GoTV Kenya, and partly by KBC? Yes or no?
I'm not aware, no. Okay. An emphatic no.
Chair, through you. Allow me to ride on the second last question by Honorable Kimayo.
Just hold on.
On the
procedurally,
loan.
Just hold on.
Yeah.
Procedurally, that probably would be maybe a point of information. You might want to seek from Honorable Kimayo whether he's keen to be informed.
Basically, Chair, you will still guide me because I'm not...
Are you keen to be informed?
Yes, yes, Chair.
Honorable Daktari.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to get clarity, bearing that on the CV of the nominee, he was holding serious positions as indicated by the nominee at MultiChoice and GoTV. I fail to understand because loaning in any organization is a critical matter that undergoes a lot of processes and commitment. And for big parastatals or companies like GoTV and MultiChoice, you cannot enter into a loaning system or agreement or request for loan without proper agreements. Could the nominee give with clarity whether he cannot remember the amount of loan? And my question, Ryder, what informed the loaning?
Okay. Through the chair, I cannot remember any amount, the specific amount of loan, because loaning between the main business, the main company, and the local subsidiary is an ongoing concern to fund operations. In terms of payment, it is very typical for a multinational to find a local entity that is being established to fund its operations, because at the beginning you do not have money or even funds to actually run basic operations. The entity then, once it grows to a point, raises money to pay.
Honorable Kimayo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the same issue of loan, so in the agreement, because initially you told us there were negotiations between KBC and GoTV Kenya for a very long time, you know, almost 10.
Yes.
That's true, right?
Yeah.
So along this way, there was no money that KBC was supposed to pay in terms of loan.
No.
Thank you.
As far as I recall.
Okay. You yourself, you are a director or, you know, shareholder at GoTV Kenya. Do you get any dividends?
No.
Okay. In you are once a director or running the operations at MultiChoice Kenya.
Yeah.
At any point, were KBC earning dividends from GoTV Kenya?
Through the chair, I think the honorable member is again switching between GoTV and MultiChoice Kenya.
Make the clarification, make the distinction.
Yes, so if you're asking about the MultiChoice Kenya, which is where KBC holds shares, yes, they actually receive dividends.
No, GoTV, sorry for the mix-up.
They will never receive any dividend from GoTV because they're not shareholders.
Okay. Are you aware of a radio station called Inca FM?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell this committee?
How do you spell that, Honorable Kimayo?
I for India, N for November, K for Kilo, and A for Alpha.
Inca FM?
Yes.
Inca radio? Okay.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Chair, Honorable
For
Member.
the information of the Vice Chair, Alpha is the first.
It's not yours, Alpha.
Is the first number in the Roman alphabet.
What do you know about this FM station? First of all, are you aware of this station?
Yes, I am.
You are aware. What do you know about it?
It is a Kisi-based FM station.
By any chance, do you know the owners?
Honorable Chair, I really am not in a position to start divulging about operators that are actually not in my purview.
I've just asked a question. By any chance, do you know the owners? Is that yes or no?
Honorable Chair, the Inca FM station is a channel that was actually licensed some time back, where a nephew of mine who had actually done ICT applied. And that time I was still out here, and he notified me and said, I have gotten a license, and he's actually operating. So if you notice, the allocation went to a gentleman called John Umoyo. That's actually my nephew.
Where is it based? Where is
It actually covers the south.
No, I mean the actual station. Where is it? The physical premises.
It comes from a Jamhuri Park in Nairobi.
Where? Is it near or in the same building with GoTV Kenya or MultiChoice?
Through the chair, I really am constrained to answer that question.
Chair, I referred the nominee to the questionnaire that was sent out to him. I don't know if he has it, on number 26. On the questionnaire that you yourself answered. And this is on the issue of potential conflict of interest. Are you there?
Yeah.
And in the questionnaire, you've been asked to identify any family members, persons, parties, categories of litigation or financial arrangements that are likely to present potential conflicts of interest if you are confirmed for this position. The only thing that you've mentioned there is that you are a director at CoTV. So you've declared that one. Yes. Why did you not come out here and say that you have a nephew that owns an FM station?
Through the chair.
Just hold on. As you answer that, just to refresh your memory, you had answered some conflict of interest questions earlier.
Yes.
The Honorable Gideon was not there. You had also made some commitments.
Yes.
In instances of potential conflict of interest, you had addressed it.
Correct.
So you might want to rely on the position that you had given.
Chair, let me...
Hold on. This is procedural. So he will answer your question. I am just referring him to proceedings that happened before you were in the room, and as such would inform.
You're not getting us, Chair. You're not getting me, Chair.
Proceed, Honorable.
This is a questionnaire which was sent to him. And the questionnaire is a schedule actually from the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. So it's something within the law. And this number 26 is asking the nominee to identify any areas that will be of conflict of interest. He was given the opportunity in the questionnaire to identify. He only mentioned one, which is that he was a director at CoTV Kenya. Chair, if I had not asked him here whether he knows this FM station, we'd have not known that the nephew, which he has just said, owns the station. That, I don't know whether that is not conflict of interest. So, Chair, my colleague has some point of information.
No, not quite a point of information. I just wanted to say, Chair, that, we are still in the process of approval hearing. So maybe the question to the nominee, would you consider that your nephew being a director in Inca FM is a potential conflict of interest, so that we include it as part of the proceedings, that is your position, then it will form part of it.
You've put it well, Honorable Manyamita. It doesn't come to you as a charge. It is a question. So engage Honorable Gideon Kimayo. Gideon, you're well in line with your questioning. The question is, you may not put it as if it has existed. It is for him to tell us if he sees as a conflict of interest. But hold on, there is a point of information from Honorable.
I think there's a subsidiary question related to what you just asked that I want to pose to the nominee.
Honorable Mumina?
Honorable Kimayo asked about whether he considers the fact that nephew is the owner, and that brings the issue of conflict of interest to play. So mine, the fact that the physical address of that FM is at a multitude, would that also be considered a conflict of interest? So you can answer both.
Thank you, Honorable Mumina, for the point of information. Do you have any interest whatsoever in that station, in that FM station?
So through the chair, the FM station was established by my nephew, as I've said. They fully run it, and in the context of a conflict of interest, just to answer back the chairman, if appointed, because I am not approved yet, I shall document that as an interest, because it's not me, it's a nephew. I shall document that as a potential conflict of interest and declare it. And of course, once it's a conflict of interest, recuse myself from any decisions, because as we said, there's nothing wrong with conflict of interest. It's about documenting it.
Chair, I need your attention. So let's assume no member of this committee had asked this question, and we just relied on the questionnaire, which you only declared that the only possible conflict of interest was that you had a director at CoTV. So what would have happened that now you've...
Honorable Kimayo, please don't engage the nominee on hypothetical whether or that one, because the only thing you can rely on, Honorable Kimayo, right now is the laws of Kenya. It is to find out, and I like the line of questioning you because this is important for Kenyans. It is not to depend on a hypothetical situation, because that's why we have such sessions.
So
That if you have a question like that, you present it now. But also, on the matter of conflict of interest, the chair can only rule according to existing laws. So I want to know where your line of questioning is headed, and that's why I'm keen for you to proceed so that we can place it within the parameters of existing laws. So continue. Do you have an intervention, Honorable Nyamita?
I just wanted to say, that so that we are able to make a bit of progress, and also to be fair to the candidates, is that whereas, yes, he did not write it, he admits that it is a potential area of interest and is unanswered. So it is all going to form part of our report, which is as good as him having put it in this particular paper, so that then we can actually progress to the next stage. Number two is that he acknowledges that it is resident within Jamhuri, maybe where multi-choice is. Is that so?
That's correct, through the chair.
That's fine. So I think I think it just needs to be very clear, and you go on record, that Inca FM is owned by so-and-so, who is known to me this way, and it is housed at this particular whatever, and the potential conflict of interest is this and that. Then it goes on our record as forming part of this. Then we can proceed to the next stage.
Point of
Just hold on,
information.
members. We can do this in an orderly way. The person on the floor is Honorable Gideon Kimayo. All these others are interventions. So I'll give the Honorable Momina, please. Please, is it an addendum question or?
Addendum,
okay. Please note this, Stephen. Please note the question so that
just to strengthen what Honorable Kimayo asked. We are having debate on whether it's conflict of interest or not. Yet, let's assume the fact that the nephew owns a radio FM called ICA is a coincidence, or is just not conflict of interest. But is it a coincidence that the same radio is premised at multi-choice? Is it a coincidence also?
I would not want this committee to venture into that. Why I wouldn't is because even the venue you're talking about, we do not know as a committee that it is a commercial. We can.
He has confirmed that it is there.
Yes, I'm just saying the venue. We do not know whether it is a commercial premise where anybody can walk in and place their business. We do not know whether they are shared offices. We do not know. So I want you, Gideon, to own your questions.
Thank you.
Not to be guided by peripheral input. Honorable Jamatia.
I think, Honorable Chair, you've exhausted what I wanted to say, but I also said on rider on that, if the nominee is going to make the declaration, he can also put it in paper or give us a registration to show that the cousin is the owner, so that he can clear this off.
Final intervention, Honorable Vice Chair.
I want to remind you that this is a vetting process, close examination, for preparing you to be in this position with a clean hands.
Correct.
Don't take it personal. These members want, want to get every bit of information to come out clearly.
Correct.
For you now, in the next step, you are a clear man if you are appointed.
Correct.
All right?
I'm getting Chair.
Now,
At the very final, I request for a different view.
you want an intervention?
In a minute.
No, hold on. Please let me structure these interventions. The Honorable Gideon Kimayo is on the floor. He has posed questions. So are you coming to inform the question? Are you coming on a point of order? Are you coming on a point of procedure? How are you coming in, Honorable Daktari?
I would coin my point on advice. So let me say this. From the introduction...
On which standing order, point of advice?
Relax, Chair. from the introduction, you know, in the vetting process, there are also learning moments. From the nominee's introduction, he was very clear that he only was brought up and saw the mother after 13 years, which means for the nominee to reach where he has reached, he must have been mentored by others. He must have been held hands by someone to reach where he has reached. And therefore, on my side, having the nephew owning that premise, probably there's a relationship because he has held positions in GoTV, multi-choice, worked for various people. I would want to assume, working on assumption, that probably he held the hands of the nephew. To me, there is no crime in that. But my concern, the nominee ought not to have put it as an oversight in declaring. And we are not fixing you because what you did is right. Otherwise, then we shall just be growing without holding hands of people, then it bears no purpose of us being in these positions. The same oversight was when it came to your certificates. He was talking about, he has a lot of experience and knowledge and trained even up to Harvard. Did you say that? If I got it right. But then, in the submission on documents which we had, there were no attachments. But he had the original file which was stating that. So the lawyer had to walk around telling us this is the file. Actually said they are all here. So that was also oversight. So next time, PS, I'm praying that you get this position. I don't know whether you're going to get it, but when you get it in the event, ensure you have proper assistants who are para, so that you present para things. Thank you.
Let me structure this. Honorable members, this is a process of vetting for possible approval. What this committee can do is to engage the nominee on matters regarding the evidence he presents or adduces, and he can adduce his evidence in the form that we have received in a written memoranda. We can even present it as a verbal presentation, which he is doing. And whatever evidence we get or he adduces, it is for us to weigh it against existing laws, against existing regulations, against existing legislation. So what I will want to do is prevent the committee from venturing into speculative space or hearsay space, because we are not here to prosecute either gossip or hearsay. So let me give those as the river banks along which this river should flow. Honorable Gideon Kimayo.
Thank you, Chair. I am finishing, Chair. Just to remind the nominee that you are under oath. So whatever you are telling this committee, you are under oath. So based on my questions, Chair, I want to ask the nominee, based on the issues of KBC and the issues of this other FM station, we are if we confirm you to be the PS for broadcasting and communication, don't you think that there will be possible conflict of interest now that you will be the boss of KBC? You will be the boss of Communications Authority, who is like the regulator of all the stations. How are you going to maneuver this? Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair.
And just remember, the Parliament is said to be a quasi-judicial entity. Yeah. And that's why you took an oath before we started. If you would require any documents to depend on when you're answering, I, as a chair, would request for you to be furnished with those documents. Yeah. I would not want an incidence of ambush in a vetting process. So where you're able to answer within your capabilities. And to remind you again, Stephen, this is a friendly engagement.
Thank you.
This is just a vetting process. Some of us have different intonation. Yeah. You might find maybe some intonation coming in a bit soft, others coming in a bit hard. We are all of different intonation, and so we understand. By the time you're appearing before us, you didn't just drop down from heaven. There must have been a process. There is a nominee, a nominating authority. PSC must have processed you to deliver you to be before this committee. So all this is understood. I wanted just to allay any fears that you may have that the process could be antagonistic. It is not. So proceed, Stephen.
Thank you, Chair Guided. Just to respond to the Honourable Member in terms of these two instances he gives, and if I am successfully nominated, like it is good with a good corporate governance, I shall declare my interest, if conflicted, and recuse myself from any further involvement in decision-making around those entities. Thank you, Chair.
Honourable Gideon Kimayo, you have the floor.
Chair, this is not a direct question to the nominee. Kenyans know and are aware that KBC is in problems. And we are the committee chair that, how can I call it, oversight the broadcasting and communication sector. I find really difficult, Chair, that GoTV, there are some fingerprints of GoTV in the mess in KBC. And today, somebody who was the head of GoTV is the same person that we want to make to add the broadcasting and communications department.
Honourable Gideon, hold on, Honourable, so that you do not even incriminate yourself. There's a place for everything, as the Bible says. This is our engagement with the nominee. In this session, you cannot even attempt at a recommendation.
Chair, I'm not giving a recommendation. I am not giving a recommendation.
And we will get to that.
I'm not, Chair.
You will have your place.
I'm not giving any recommendation, Chair.
An observation is part of the report.
I have evidence for what I'm saying.
Yes, Chair. But I am saying, is it a question?
We have a memoranda.
Is it a question or not?
Chair, just allow me.
I'm asking
Chair,
a question.
Just allow me. Why don't you allow me, Chair? An observation.
Observation has its place.
Chair,
to you.
We have a memoranda, Chair, here from a committee of Parliament called PIC. And in their memoranda, they are telling us, this committee, that please do not confirm the nominee. It is not my words, it's a memoranda. And Chair, in their last statement from a PIC committee headed by Honorable Wangwe, they are telling us the committee, which is of PIC, is of the view that the nominee will be suited to serve in another state department to avoid conflict of interest.
Hold on.
I don't think this is a document of this committee.
When I was admitting this document, I was very clear where it has come from and its import to this vetting process.
So we should not revert to it?
No. Make all reference. What you cannot do is at this point, observations have their place and the recommendations have
I'm just reading.
They will come in at the right table.
Chair, I wanted to say.
Question, I will allow you
Chair.
all the leadway.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
To put any question.
Chair, I think Honorable Kimayo has gone on a good questioning line. However, the letter from Honorable Wangwe to this committee was Wangwe's version, the version of their committee, which this committee is not obliged to actually go by. Let's be very clear. Number two.
That is why we are here.
That's why we are here. Number two.
The document appears to us ex parte.
Absolutely. Number two, that very document has been shared with the nominee, and the nominee has actually responded to it. So we would only question his revert to the issues, because Honorable Wangwe's or the PICS committee's recommendation here is a one-sided version. But I think for purposes of this meeting, as to how he has responded and the recommendation from PIC committee is for the committee, when we retreat, to actually now look at it on merit and decide. But we would be unfair to the candidate to cast aspersions on his suitability right here when we are still going through the vetting process. Thank you, Chair.
I'm well guided, Chair, and that is my submission. Thank you.
Do you have any other question, Honorable Gideon?
Maybe later.
You're
Thank
exhausted.
You.
one of the members of parliament here, of course, Bensouda here, had also said, you didn't count pieces and pieces of some part of your documents, but I have your original. In fact, I was telling myself, if I run with this, I think you really have to look for me. Because all your documents are here, and they are the original.
They are.
Very well.
Yeah.
So, I am really concerned, Chair, I am deeply concerned, and I want the nominee to convince me, because I have gone through. I do not see, apart from the 3 certificates, most of which were one-day training, that touches around media, around broadcasting, around mass.
I emphatically address the Honorable Committee and say that in my experience, I have all my working life, which is almost 14 or so years, later part of my life, I've actually been media and technology. What actually happens? What happens to leadership? What happens? A lot of knowledge is actually applied knowledge. You do not have to go to class to qualify in a particular area to apply that knowledge. And a lot of it has actually been gained by experience. Through you, Chair, I have participated in many, many media initiatives, both in my role at work and also where I've had exposure. In the process, I've actually engaged engineers, okay. I've engaged tech and all that, okay. As we implement. Okay. So there's a concept, Chair, called applied knowledge. And today, if you actually want to interrogate me on satellite technology, I can talk to you the A to Z, okay. Because in fact, our stuff comes from satellite. Right. I can tell you how you host a satellite, pin the signal, receive it, that's why it's called direct to home. Yes. And actually then encrypt and monetize. Thank you. So those are things that I've actually out of experience picked. And knowledge is also dynamic. The qualification I had as a business admin or MPA is basically just to open the door. How I use my capacity, and there is in management a call capacity. I actually can end up selling jet engines. Some of the people that actually work for General Electric are people who did Bachelor of Arts. They're not.
All right. So comfortable enough, Chair. He has. Steve has really been able to convince us that the papers may not be there, but it's very good in the space that he's been able to operate from. Thank you. So let me move. Let me also make a.
Chair, I want to have a write down what Honorable Kituri is saying. As much as I agree with the nominee explanation, but on reality, you cannot be a doctor if you did arts. So we cannot agree in totality that you can be anything. I mean, you can go to teach as a teacher and still go and be a pilot. So the academic must be, I mean, of important when you talk about professionalism. And again, on the same, and sorry to add, apart from the certificate, that is the degree and the master's, I'm so keen to understand is CP or CE, you know, the distance and the modality today. It is another thing. I would probably wish, Bwana nominee, if you had even taken time to advance yourself, as much as you've been in multi-choice Kenya, or wherever, you would have been in a position to go to all those communication and ICT world so that you fit very well. Otherwise, in this case, you're just a marketer. Thank you.
Yes, hold on. Allow me to rule the following to your statement. First, it's not a point of order. That is a point of argument. And I would not want to open it up as a point of argument because even in the space we are in, he gave an example of the terrestrial space. Right now, Engineer Nyamita will tell you the person who is big on terrestrial installations is one Elon Musk. He's very good at it. He has no single document he would produce on how he went through NASA for training. But that, again, I say is a point of argument. That's why I would not want to open it up as a discussion.
Yes,
Honorable
Chair, I would not, Chair.
It is for us as a committee to satisfy ourselves from his presentation that he is fit to hold office in the office that we are interviewing him for, and reminding ourselves also that that office requires for him to conduct many other functions beyond just the technical understanding and know-how. There is a space for leadership, a space for administration, a space for all these other policy and so on. So, Honorable Kitur, you're on the floor.
Thank you. I thought I'd put in a summary and say that I have had, I just wanted a confirmation in terms of his qualifications, and he has spoken, so it is for us to go prosecute when we will retreat back for our report writing. Now, allow me, Chair, also to declare an interest that, Chair, apart from being in the Committee of Information and Innovation, Chair, I so happen to have been as well in the Committee of Public Investments, Social Services, Administration, and Agriculture, where in that space, Chair, we audit, and sometimes also, Chair, during the process of the audit, there are issues that come up that may require us to do investigation. And today, the nominee here has mentioned potential areas of conflict, which I think stands tall. I want to indicate, Chair, that I participated in the investigation of the MultiChoice Africa, the Go TV, MultiChoice Kenya, in regard to relationship with KBC. Chair, I have read the letter, or rather the memorandum, that was forwarded by my former chair, Emmanuel Wangwe, and I want to agree in totality in what he wrote. And for those who are here, because I was in this committee, I was part of it, where it says it's on this background that the committee submits this memorandum regarding the appointment of Mr. Stephen Isaboke, the nominee for the position of Principal Secretary, State Department of Broadcasting and Telecommunication, has been convoluted with personal commercial interest, and being a shareholder with an estimated value of 1.4 billion, the committee is of the view that the nominee will be suited to serve in other state departments to avoid conflict of interest. However, I want now to pick on the response of Mr. Isaboke, and that will be just my line of questioning. Because, as I said, I immersed myself in this space. I was in the entire interrogation phase. So what I'll be asking you is just basic questions, and I'll give you also an opportunity, sir. You can give one or two explanations, but I'm still of the opinion that as much as possible, try to reduce the, let's get to the point so that we are able to finish this on record time.
If that could apply to you too.
Chair. Well, that is the guidance of the chair. Thank you. In your response, you indicated that you raised a preliminary objection. Was this supposed to gag us as members of the committee from making a response on this? You cited the Republic versus Nairobi City Council in a case there regarding audit issues that happened between 2016 and 2017 for KBC. Is it in any way, were you trying to gag us from having the opportunity to interrogate you today?
Through the Honorable Chair, no.
Thank you. Second, we did this investigation because, one, and I've seen in your CV, around 2011, you were still in MultiChoice Kenya. Is that the case, sir?
I transited in November 2011 to become regional director. So 2011 was actually a transition year.
Thank you very much. Yeah. In the audit, one of the things that came up, and our concern actually around that time, is the fact that KBC the audit that was done for the relationship between, for MultiChoice Kenya, was that you had made a profit of 116, no, the portion for KBC was supposed to have been given 116 million, but 96 million was paid. So one of the things we were investigating around that time was 20 million. And I'm saying this because you were actually the managing director, were you, of MultiChoice Kenya within the period of that business?
I was a managing director, but I'm unable to comment about the specific numbers because that would normally be done by finance.
Thank you. Can I ask you, is the relationship between KBC, in your view, with MultiChoice Africa, is that relationship of benefit, in your view, to KBC and Kenyans?
Through the chair, I neither work for MultiChoice Kenya nor KBC, so really constrained to make a comment in terms of their structure because those are two willing entities that have actually partnered. But I can comment for the period that I was actually a director. We did actually pass benefits to KBC, working to, over the cumulative period, almost 1.8 billion in terms of dividends paid from MultiChoice Kenya to KBC.
Thank you.
So to answer Honorable Kitul's question succinctly, your submission is that in the duration that you are at MultiChoice, KBC stood to benefit from the relationship that KBC had with MultiChoice.
Yes, I can say that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are you aware, because you're still in MultiChoice, around 2017, 2018, and 2018, 2019, there were no dividends that were paid to KBC besides the fact that in 2014, 2015, they paid for 80 million. Are you in any case aware that there were no dividends that were paid?
So through the chair, I'm no longer in MultiChoice. As I said to the committee earlier, I left in December 2020. I am unable to comment about the specific years is referring to dividends.
I am saying that because at that time, sir, you were working for MultiChoice Africa.
Through the chair, MultiChoice Africa is a separate entity from MultiChoice Kenya. I was never operationally involved.
Okay, thank you.
Honorable
Let's
members,
move
I want to call this to order so that we can protect Honorable Kitur as he is asking his questions.
Oh, all right. Yeah, thank you, sir. The next question I wanted to ask you is, were you aware of the board members of KBC and MultiChoice Africa? How many members were there for KBC and how many were there for MultiChoice Africa?
Through the chair, I seek clarification. Board members in which entity?
In MultiChoice Kenya. Sorry, MultiChoice Africa and MultiChoice and KBC in the entity that they had as MultiChoice Kenya.
Through the chair, I do not want to second guess. That's information that can be found in the CR12 for that company.
Thank you very much. I just want to assist you. There were 2 members from KBC and there were 3 members from MultiChoice Africa. And in that case, the chairman was always from KBC. However, KBC never had an opportunity to have representation in the management of MultiChoice Kenya. And therefore, anytime, like in 2017, 2018, 2019, no dividends was being paid to KBC in their due right, but KBC had no way, completely sealed, from being able to see what actually, how much is this relationship making. But that notwithstanding, allow me, Chair, now to move to the next one. Sir, did you participate or in any way contribute, if at all my memory serves me right, in the making of the Kika Bill 2009 or its regulations?
Yes, I did.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll come for you. So let me go to the next question. Again, when did you join GoTV?
So again, through the chair, I was nominated by the group to actually be one of the directors on the GoTV when it was incepted, and this is what I said. There is a period between incorporating a company where there is no activity and operationalizing a company. That's why I did not want to pin to a specific period. But because of my position as an executive in the group proposed me, among other colleagues, to actually sit in, because a company is run by fiduciary. So people must be appointed to actually be directors, and as one, among others, if you look at those CR12 for those periods, you'll see different people actually, among others, standing in for GoTV.
Thank you very much for that fantastic answer. Maybe also to still take you back a bit, did you say that you participated in supporting, the amendment of the Kika Bill 2009, sir?
Very much so, I confirm.
Fantastic, thank you, sir. In one of the clauses, that is Clause 10, yeah. I think 4810, it says ownership and control. One says, no persons other than the public broadcaster shall be directly or indirectly entitled to more than one broadcast frequency or channel for radio or television broadcasting in the same coverage area, provided the Commission shall prescribe a time frame for existing stations to comply with this requirement. So, sir, you say you are aware about this, that then it is important that they were not going to allow, and also I also picked it also in your response, but you are not going to allow more than one single entity to hold shares in more than one broadcasting signal distribution?
Yes.
Thank you. And you still stand by that? You think it was a very good suggestion?
So, Chair, if I can get just to clarify, this refers to signal distribution network, and KPC already had Signet, which was a signal distribution network, and the regulation is referring to, which I'm familiar with, precludes any other entity having two signal distribution networks like Signet. In this case, I was aware of the Kicker Act, and in the course of negotiation with KPC, it was incumbent on KPC to draw back and say, even if you are offering us this, shareholding, we're actually encumbered by regulation. It will have been KPC to respond back. And secondly, there is also cases where an operator can seek waivers. You can seek a waiver. You're relieved and allowed, by exception, to actually do. And those will be the kind of instruments, typically, because people pay to find solutions where KPC will have approached to actually be allowed. I'm just answering back.
Yeah. So, Chair, in 2012, that is when our nominee got the opportunity to work for GoTV. They engaged KBC, knowing very well that they were not able to actually sign that partnership on account of the fact that, you know, in 2009, you had passed a law that would lock KBC not to be able to actually engage. Is it true or false?
Not true.
All right, let me move to...
Chair, let me inform Honorable Kitur, if you allow me, Chair, that...
No point of information, you'd have to seek it from Honorable Kitur.
Okay.
That's your standing orders.
Chair...
Are you ready to be informed?
Yes, sir, I wouldn't mind to be informed, sir.
Mheshimiwa Kimayu.
Thank you.
Chair, at that time that KBC was in negotiation with GoTV, they already knew that KBC had given their frequencies to Signet. And the law did not allow a scenario where you can hold with multiple, players. So that's why the nominee, Honorable Kitur, was asking him whether he was aware of that part of the law, which he participated in the amendment, that you are not allowed to share the frequencies with more than two partners. Thank you, Chair.
Chair.
That's why I've passed it, Chair.
There are already too many microphones on. Kindly, Gideon, just Bernard, cede the floor first. Member from Boni.
Thank you, Chair. Point of information to Kitu. Is it granted?
Yes. Granted, sir. Granted, sir.
You are laboring too much on the directorship of Isaboke in GoTV. In the self-declaration form, he wrote 2011. Is he in agreement? That is the date of first appointment into GoTV to present time. Then from there you can prosecute.
Mine was just a point of order, Chair. And Honorable Kitur is actually just in order. But I think we know the lawmaking process, and whereas the nominee will agree that he participated in the lawmaking, we all know that he could have only participated as part of public participation. So really we cannot...
No,
yeah,
Chair.
it's the truth. Because Chair, we are the ones who make laws.
No.
So when we get... allow me, this is a point of order. Anyone who is not in any lawmaking organization can only participate as part of giving information during public participation. So really, I think it would also be unfair, and Kituri, you're in order, but it would be unfair to try and say you participated in the lawmaking, and now, because he participated to the extent that he could only give information as public participation, but lawmaking is actually a reserve of certain entities in the country.
Hold on. This is critical. I was reserving it for when we retreat to write so that we know what we can admit. However, because Honorable Mark Nyamita has brought it, the process of making law is clear to everybody. The president in office today, we all remember, he was sworn in by the Constitution of Kenya, 2010. But in the process of the making of that Constitution, we know on which side the president stood in the process of making that law. So I do not think that the Kika Act was actually made by Stephen Isaboke.
No, Chair. I think all of you are mistaking what I say, Chair.
We do not know.
No. Can I explain myself to you, sir?
Honorable Kituri. We do not even know what his contribution in terms of the peripheral place he would have taken in terms of public participation. We do not know what his position was on the Kika that we are operationalizing. So thank you very much, Honorable Nyamita. I wanted to reserve that on the time we retreat. Honorable Mumina.
I think we need not to confuse each other here. Honorable Kituri is very clear when he asked that question. He wanted to be clear of the fact that he participated, and that means he knows what he was participating in, what the law says, and what he doesn't say.
Now, Honorable Mumina.
So, Chair, on that side, you guys are interrupting the flow of questions. Kindly, Chair, guide and protect the rest of us who are asking questions. We are doing this for the public.
Honorable Mumina, you're totally out of order. It's totally out of order. Because what Honorable Mark Nyamita said is a point of fact, and it is even a point of law, that the participation of the nominee to the lawmaking process, if he is not a member of parliament, is peripheral. At the point at which he would have come in, would have been maybe at the point of public participation. No more. So anyway, it is not to open this up for debate. Honorable Kituri, I will protect you now to ask your questions.
Thank you. And maybe to give a bit of clarity, the reason why, Chair, I'm doing the quick fire is just to bring to the attention of Isaboke that, are you aware? Because you see, in your presentation, you said actually you participated in some of these laws in this country that have really been positive, several of them. I only picked one clause of the very many that opened up the space of broadcasting and telecommunication in our country. So it was actually in support. The only reason I brought that matter is so that I could be able to affirm from you that you engaged when you are in GoTV, you engaged with KBC, knowing very well KBC is incapacitated on that account that it was already having a shareholding in Signet. And so it was a pre-plan. You had already schemed way ahead, and you knew. So in my view, I did not have in any way anything. And that's why I didn't corner you. And I asked you, you said yes, I moved on. That was a peripheral thing. So I would like to encourage also members, let's not pick peripheral issues. Let's pick the main issues. Thank you very much. So let's move on to the next question. Mr. Isaboke, let me digress a bit before I come back. You mentioned that your worth is about 680 million.
Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to find out, sir, what is the value of GoTV in a way? Was that included in your worth?
So through the chair, I have, as part of my sort of build up of my ownership, added shares, and what I've actually added is estimated value, if I ever, because it's actually just estimated value. So there is GoTV valuation that I have taken to actually add, because I am required by law to add ND-FAD income. That's a requirement. And the GoTV component is a much smaller component in that. It's much smaller. It's not part of that. As the Honorable Chair will know, I have actually worked for 33 years. In the course, I was in the oil industry. I was in Unilever. I then have built myself over time. So GoTV is just one of the elements.
Thank you. I didn't dispute. I was just asking.
Thank you.
Now, is it what you said in C? You said there was a portion that we are talking about 1.4 billion, because I said I was in the investigation that it is. And in our view as the committee, we had indicated that we want the 10% shareholding that was due to KBC because of the utilization of their assets between the time you began operations all the way to 2021. Because, and you will serve me right, there was an indication from MultiChoice Africa that they were going to invest 14.4 billion shillings, in which case 30%, which is about 5.7 billion, was going to be the portion for KBC. And in addition, is providing the sites. So my question again, and you, in your response that you made, that in the year 12, the nominal value of the asset is 17 million. And so in your view, you affirm in a way that then your value is still about 5 million. Is that the case, sir?
So through the chair, the honorable member is actually asking issues around the MultiChoice relationship between KBC and MultiChoice Africa. Entities I'm not really authorized to speak. Specifically around my acquisition of the shares, yes, the way shares are sold is that you actually buy shares as nominally denominated. Any out of these numbers that I cannot vouch for, that the member is referring to, I really can't vouch, but if there was anything in the proposals, those were possibly working capital proposals to actually get the business going. But I cannot specifically pin on a number. The number I can vouch on is the nominal share value, which you can find on CR12. Anything else are going concern movement.
Very right. Thank you, sir. So let's move on to the next bit. And I want to bring, so of course now, so what you're saying is our view that between 2012 to 2021, when GoTV was somewhat in operation and there was an agreement that and they were using assets of KBC, which of course when KBC declined and not to, which were not able to do a write-up between MultiChoice Africa and KBC, which you took over that. So between that period of over 10 years, using assets, up to 2017, of course, when the frequencies were changed, was KBC compensated? Because I'm asking this question because you were in the management.
Through the chair, once again, I'll give information to the extent of what I know because I'm not in there. So this was a newly incorporated business running on losses. The two partners agreed to co-locate. You'll see references to co-location. In the process, MultiChoice used some KBC sites. KBC used some MultiChoice sites. There was actually, that's a very standard practice in industry. So to what extent values were exchanged, that's operational. I cannot comment.
How is the share and the balance in co-location,
yes,
so that you can answer his question?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge,
yes,
who is using more of each other's resources than the other?
To my recollection, Chair, KBC is actually using more GoTV sites than GoTV using KBC. And it's progressively because the sites were being rolled over time. Progressively.
Chair.
You can put in your intervention, Mheshimiwa Gideon.
I ask you, Mheshimiwa Kitur, to allow me for a writer question. When did GoTV, when did it go live in Kenya?
Through the chair, I really cannot pin a date because it was a whole process to actually get...
On average estimate.
Through the chair, I really cannot give dates.
Don't wade into speculation, kindly, honourable member. Yes. What you allowed is if, for example, you have information, you can put it to him, but you cannot have him wade into speculation.
There is a reason why I'm asking that question, Chair, because if we are able to know when GoTV, went live in Kenya, I want to know whether, even before then, when did you, as the director of GoTV, or the managing director of GoTV, when did you acquire your own frequencies from CA?
Through the chair, just point of correction, I have never been managing director of GoTV. I have never been an employee of GoTV. I've only been a director representing Maldives African shareholder.
So, you are not working for GoTV?
I have never been an employee of GoTV.
But you are representing MultiChoice Kenya in GoTV?
Through the chair again, representing Maldives Africa.
Africa in GoTV?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. So when, as a shareholder of GoTV Kenya, when did GoTV Kenya acquire their own frequencies from CA?
Through the chair again, there was a whole movement between the trials and digital migration wars happening. When the Supreme Court made a ruling on liberalizing signal distribution, then the whole platform changed and the regulator actually awarded GoTV, among other signal distribution platforms. GoTV operates what we call own provisioning. So they have a network they actually support because of pay TV. So cannot pin dates.
So to just get what Honorable Kituru was asking, between the period when negotiations were happening between GoTV and KBC, at any point, GoTV Kenya utilized frequencies of KBC?
Honorable Chair, we're going into sort of a case where I need our mapping us to confirm or deny things that are actually very operational. We know how the setup was established. We know how that moved from initial trial to eventually the regulator affirming or allocating GoTV frequencies.
Honorable Kituru, land this plane now. And for the information
I want
of
to
honorable
take
members,
the last bit.
there are committees that have been vetting even 2 PSs this morning, and they've concluded they are now writing their reports. So, Honorable Kituru, land
Chair, I don't think you're being fair on me on that line.
I guarantee you time.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
I guarantee you time.
You know, when you say that, and you're a very good chair, and we love you so very much, and you're always very democratic. Thank you, sir.
I just said that.
And that is why we have always voted for you. Now, let me bring it to the last bit. And with all due respect, Mr. Isaboke, I must admit, I salute your stellar model of how you've climbed your ladder and doing business. However, let me get back again. Could you in any way have been involved, in trying to get the frequencies or an engagement or a discussion in getting the frequencies that were owned by KBC in a way that KBC were to be coerced to release the frequencies to CA, and on the same 3 days later, all the frequencies were moved to GoTV? In any way, sir, could you have had any intel or information when you were director?
No.
Thank you, sir. Now, finally, could you have been aware, just trying to throw your mind, that in and around 2016 September, there was a lot of dissatisfaction from the CEO then of KBC and PS on the nature of the relationship that existed earlier between the MultiChoice Africa and KBC, and now the GoTV, the desire for MultiChoice to relate with GoTV, or the MultiChoice to relate with KBC, in a sense to have GoTV be in place. And there was an intention that was reached out to you. There was an intention to do an audit of the relationship among key issues, because behind the scenes there were shadows that were pushing for this relationship to happen. Up and around 26th of July 2017, you actually did respond to an email to Mr. Waihenya, and you said, "Hi Mkubwa, what is the progress of the PKF consultants on the GoTV due diligence? Can we see their draft prior to the final document to ensure that correct facts and information have been captured? For example, GoTV has recently been granted a self-provisioning license by CAK. We need to ensure that all the facts are reflected." It's a positive statement. nothing bad about it.
It is in my place,
it's a very positive.
Honorable Kittur, it is in my place as the chair of this committee to request, to ask, are you in possession of the documents he's relying on?
I don't have them.
Because as a chair, I am not, so that we work on the admissibility of it.
I actually say chair, just in case it's away, and I say it's a positive thing, nothing negative about it.
No worries, I'm just saying why I introduced the memoranda from PIC is because of the processes of admission of evidence. So,
Chair,
if you are in possession of it, you can respond. If you are not, you can respond.
Chair, I'm not in possession.
And Chair, I've been asking several questions. Yeah. Most of it are not here. They are in the position upstairs because you remember some of those events.
If you will rely on any document, let it be.
So you are not able to recall a conversation like that between yourself because it was in a positive manner. You're actually saying, can I see the draft report? Because you wanted to confirm, because earlier in the year, you had actually been given the licenses. GoTV had been given the licenses. So you are saying you want that to be captured in the draft report. So you said, sir, you may not be able to remember.
Through the chair, because it's referring to a document that I don't have. I don't want to specifically comment about it.
Thank you. No problem. Thank you, sir. So final. Sir, up and around March of 2017, thereabout, on 28th of February 2017, KBC relinquished 38 frequencies. And on 3rd of March 2017, they were allocated to GoTV. By any chance, sir, could you be able to recall that it was taken from KBC, but it went to CA, and it was given to GoTV? By any chance, sir, could you be able to recall that?
Through the chair once again, I really am unable to comment about those operational things because there are people running those entities, the regulator and the GoTV, and I was never directly running it. So I cannot comment about those operational, processes.
Granted, Stephen.
Thank you very much. So I think, Chair, that is an extremely critical asset that would ever hint for one to say that probably it is true, we might have forgotten, but being the owner, the investor, to say that you do not recall such the foundation of what holds GoTV. I think it's okay, we can always forget this. And so I want to thank you very much, our nominee. I repeat again, you have a great history. Your climb in your career ladder is very impressive. I must salute you for that. And even having made this far is something commendable. I want to thank you, sir, and I want to wish you well.
Thank you, Honorable. And
honorable members, we will all have opportunity. There's no rush. The nominee will also have his opportunity to do any closing remarks to cover any ground that he hasn't covered. So I want to open the floor now for any subsequent intervention that any member would have. And this is limited to a question. When you have information, you can only at most put it to the nominee. But the process we are in is to question the nominee in line with the vetting procedures and an act that we have enacted as Parliament on how these should happen. So I see interest in some interventions. I'll start with you, Honorable Engineer Nyamita.
Chair, the biggest issue that is there is that the government is really struggling to communicate its agenda. And it's a very big gap whereby you get senior government officials saying the government is doing so much, but there's a real challenge in communication. Should you be successful, would you be okay for this committee and the government and possibly the nation at large holding you responsible if the government programs that are ongoing do not come out to the public the way they should, because now you're going to be fully in charge of communication? Are you promising this committee that you have the capability to ensure that government programs are clearly explained with clarity for purposes of understanding? Thank you, Chair.
I see interest. Honorable County MP for Baringo.
Thank you, Chair. On the same rider, on communication. We also realize that this country is losing so much in terms of patriotism, and communication is also playing a key factor, whereby you are realizing through the media, either mainstream, social media, that everyone is gearing to tear apart negatively this country. This is your docket if given opportunity to serve. I want us to understand, I want you to tell us, what is this that you're going to do so differently? During Moi's time, we used to have patriotic songs that elevated and give people information about their country. We are losing it so fast to the extent that we are ready to just throw any dirt against our country because of a lot of disinformation, a lot of freedom in terms of communication. It is a very key factor that communication through this docket is going to hold this country together. Going forward, because we are going to a lot of charge political activities. On another note, checking on your CV, I realized you are, which is a good thing, you had a few appointments, specifically like the Kisi, this one appointed by your governor, Mr. Arati, to be the county chairman on selection committee panel, which I think is a community service because you come from that place. It's good to give back to the community. You also Kenya police force in board of trustees. You are going to be a servant for the people of Kenya. We don't want you to regionalize your services also. I want to also be clear on that. Thank you, Chair.
Is that an adjacent intervention?
Yeah. I want him to come clear now, in the sense that currently the government is struggling in terms of communication. You find the propaganda is more than the actual information. What the government is doing and what people are saying is different. The government has a gap to explain to people exactly what it's doing and to convince the people. Now, in the sense that you're going to be in charge of this docket, how are you going to transit this thing that people now will understand the functions and roles and what the government is doing? That's what I wanted to add.
Please note these questions because I will have you answer them all together. I have the Honorable Mumina Bonaya and shall be followed without any prompting by Honorable Dr.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I want to really underscore the importance of the exercise we are taking the nominee through, which is a vetting. And for vetting, at the center of it is ethics and integrity. And, we just had a session where so many questions were raised. Some of them were not able to answer. We kept saying that it was operational and we can't really comment on it, but we really wanted you to say something on that. Moving away from that, there are some coincidences that are pleasant when it happens. And I want to question this coincidence where you are an MD at multi-choice when a lot of things that happen to KBC in terms of the rip-off that we are all talking about here happened. And here you are as a nominee for the Department of Broadcasting and Telecommunication, where KBC is squarely under you, Communication Authority is squarely under you, and you now have, you are the leadership at the helm of this department. My question is, do you consider this a coincidence, or there is a force that we really can't put our hands on or fingers on in terms of having you in this department and not anywhere else? Secondly, how can you win our trust and confidence to lead this department with all these unanswered questions that is hanging over your head?
Thank you. Congratulations for having that stamina to stand up to now.
Thank you, Madam Bensouda. Thank you, Mheshimiwa.
I have about very simple and basic questions. I want to start with which is not our model, but as Kenyans, the commonly known bottom-up economic model on youth empowerment, which has not come out very, very clearly in the deliberations and the questions asked. Journalism as an area, currently as we speak, the passion with which the youths can get into it for professional training, there is a gap. 2, the institutions offering training, other than in Nairobi, we can't tell. Reason, they are also experiencing infrastructural delimitations, financial inadequacies, and so the awareness of choices of faculties at the university level, the students who can be sponsored for these courses, the diploma areas, the certificate levels, and the satisfaction of pursuing journalism, so that by the end of it, the output is employment. There is no guarantee. As a member of this committee, under mass communication, there is an institution which, when the sector appears before us, they are talking of money all the times. All the times. Before they present, we even can tell what they want to tell us. Yet, even with the progress, is very limited to the funds normally being given. What actions are you going to take? 1, to ensure that you intensify the institutional training areas, not only at bachelor levels upwards, but scale it down to diploma, certificate, and to the counties, so that our students, the youths, can be empowered. And then we talk about economic empowerment from a perspective of bottom-up economic model for youths. Number 2, I want to ask on skill development and capacity building. I also want to say that under this area, we have not come out clearly that under broadcasting, we are talking of content creators, locally, commonly referred to as bloggers. The remuneration for them, bringing them on board, their economic participation, where are we at this level? We are talking of counties, my number 3. I've heard at times governors are being attacked of pitching TVs along centers to actually educate and sensitize the electorates on the ongoing projects and policies. How can you do this so that government policies, county policies, project implementations, all of them, they are taken care of, because through that, I believe, people can be at par, and this can augment what is slowly taking place at the Kenya Broadcasting. Number 4 and second last, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. If you work there, that's not an institution you even want to appear there. It is stories after stories. The acting MD, the second last acting, leave alone the ones who followed, something is wrong along those corridors. What are you going to do to ensure that it is a Kenya Broadcasting Corporation? What are you going to do to ensure that viewers are able to be attracted? Like when the communication team were coming in, I was really asking for where is Ramogi, where is Citizen? I didn't ask where is KBC, because I know how many people view KBC. So what are you going to do to ensure that Kenyans, we are taxpayers, we are glued to Kenya Broadcasting? Finally, you mentioned that you helped the government in a case. I don't know which case you tailored. It was not very clear. I don't know what I was thinking. I was between here and Homa Bay County at that time. In the case, you tailored towards the government, and the government won the case. You have been a director, an executive. I think God just designed to pay you back the many pinches that you had in a broad way. So from the presentations that our colleagues were asking, Go TV, This other one was called Inca. So many, which painted you to be seriously conflicted. To me, I like aggressive people or persons, and I congratulate you. Me, I don't like people who are just lazy. You are very aggressive. Can you bring the aggressiveness in Kenya Broadcasting Corporation? Should you be granted the opportunity? Thank you.
Kisungu kubwa. And I pray that anybody after that will be a bit brief, because we are doing, these are just adjacent questions. We had asked our key questions. So because of the interest, I'll go in that line without any queuing, without any prompting. So honorable member for yourself.
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief. The nominee, you are coming in as PS in charge of communications and telecommunications, broadcasting, sorry. There are two institutions. One, Posta, which you will oversee. Another one is CA. Let me start with Posta. What are your plans to, get us Posta back to where it was? Because now,
allow me that, because that was asked. It's unanswered. It was very sufficiently answered. Jump to the next.
The second one, sorry, Chair, for that, I was not in. The second one is the issue of CA. The current government is trying so much to have all Kenyans have universal health care. And key to this is the issue of digital health care system. So, not all parts of this country are connected. They don't have network. CA is the one that manages Universal Fund. What are you going to do differently so that all parts of this country is covered by network coverage? Thank you, Chair.
Please allow me, Stephen, unless you have new information, just to inform Honorable Kimayo that the two questions were asked. Committee had sufficiently received your answers, unless you have additional information.
Chair, if that was asked,
yes.
I raised my case then. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Mwalimu.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Isaboke, in case you succeed, how will you deal with issues like misinformation, fake news, and cybercrime, which are prevalent in the digital space?
Thank you, Mwalimu. We had answers to that, and the answers will suffice. Engineer Nyamita, member from Mbone.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Isaboke, this is my 8th year in this committee. Last time I was still in the same committee. And we have seen several PSCs come, we vet them, they say they will do their best. Since the first time we saw the first PS up to today, KBC and PCK are still at the same level where they were. If by any chance you are appointed, what charm are you going to bring to ensure KBC and PCK are on their feet?
Brilliant. Honorable Jematia.
Chair.
Thank you. It is expected of you coming into government, and especially for the position you're taking, to be on top of news and on top of current affairs. But this committee also is keen on how we partner with, as a parliament, with international obligations, international treaties, international conventions. I'd like to know from you, Stephen, just this morning, the NIS Director General has raised concerns about the impact of online misinformation. Again, the issue that was brought up about here, and how it is eroding public trust and deepening divisions across tribal lines, across religious lines, and so on. And he was calling for coordinated strategies among the African nations on how we would address these issue that has no boundaries. So to the same question that was asked by Honorable Mumina, or by Jamatia and Kimayo, would you crystallize it in a way almost giving us a working plan? In your view, if you got this position as PS, how would you work us, not only as a sector, not only as a department, not only as a ministry, not only just as Kenya, how would you work us into a working plan locally and internationally on addressing these issues of misinformation and the impact they have? Before you come to the microphone, allow me to cede the floor to a specially elected member to make his introduction so that he can go on record. And honorable member, if you have a question, this is the time to put it.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry I came late. I was traveling, but my name is Abdisirat Ali, nominated member of Parliament and member of this committee. Thank you very much. I will ask a question as you exhaust the line. Thank you very much.
This was your opportunity. After this, we get the closing remarks. Do you have any question?
Okay.
No worries. I'll allow him to answer the questions.
Okay.
Then just before he does his opening remarks, I'll give you a minute. Stephen, you've taken the questions. So on this round of questions, yes, I can allow you to answer them thematically. Yes. You do not have to answer each one as it was presented. So have a go at it.
Yeah. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable members of the committee. I think the various honorable members have asked several questions, and in some instances I'll just cite and respond. In some instances, as the Honorable Chair aptly sort of guided, I shall combine if they are actually thematically in the same space. The Honorable Mark Nyamita, engineer, raised a question around government communications, because my function docket will actually include that. It is a very key function, because in fact the key element of the PS's Department for Broadcasting and Telecom is actually communication of government messaging. So if approved and successful, what I'll do through you, Chair, is basically first to appreciate that there is a gap currently. Number two, coordinate with my colleagues, because communication is very dynamic and very broad, both at the ministry, both at other communication arms within government, to actually try to streamline, so that we're talking one government, one message, one activity. And then agree, because we have to work as a team, how do we actually coordinate this dissemination of information? So first, receiving, where we can use the various arms of government, Kenya News Agency, for example, or any other avenues of gathering information. And once we have it, how do we then, as a communication department, disseminate proper, factual information, and especially key information around government policy? So streamlining communication around other related functions will actually be one of the approaches. And then obviously retooling our people just to make sure they're well equipped to report. So the Honorable MP for Baringo raised the question around patriotism, communication, and such, which actually feature in media. The Constitution is very clear around media freedom, but also puts safeguards around what the media cannot do. What we will do as a ministry, if successful, is basically to keep engaging both the media and the public around our responsibilities. We say that freedom has accountability, freedom has a responsibility. And this is a thing that we keep on reminding consistently and engaging, so that we all find that we need a peaceful Kenya, and a Kenya that actually works for all of us, not some and others. There was a comment around my role in the county, which was just a temporal thing to actually assist the governor at that stage. And also the Kenya Police FC, where I was actually the inaugural chairman for the first year. When it was actually established, it's a voluntary board. There was never remuneration or anything. Again, to give assurance through you, Chair, about my nationalism. You had my background. I am evidence of this grit of a Kenyan that rises from zero. Almost no one expected a person from that background, often at 13, to work through very, very sort of difficult, sometimes challenging assignments to rise to this level. I am a quintessential spirit of a Kenyan. In the process of coming up, I've had a lot of handlers, a lot of mentors, and my attitude is I look at everything nationally. So if I'm given a chance, I'll serve anywhere, and I will serve all Kenyans equally, regardless of my creed, my background. There was a question, again, from Honorable Bensouda about the government struggling with information. I think my earlier comment around enabling people like KNA to gather information will actually cover that. The Honorable Bonaya asked a question around ethics and integrity, and questions around the relationship with KBC and where I'm coming from. I have exhaustively answered that question. First, to say that if and where it turns out there is any conflict, obviously I have to declare. Number two, there have been instances where Malchus has actually been a huge benefit, a sort of contributor of KBC's success, and that's documented as well. Where there have been pitfalls, I think the two institutions, and really it's a shareholder issue, have to engage and make sure that they find each other. To her question around whether there's a trust deficit and all that, I assure this honorable committee that I, in my both private and public life, have lived to the best of my ability, especially given my background that was actually very disadvantaged. The only way an orphan can survive is be relied on by other people, build trust, and actually show it. So it's a case where I will have to live by the same ethos and values that I've grown through in my very long career. Honorable Bensouda did ask about Peter and the youth. I'll just combine that one question. So, in fact, the plan by the current Kenya Kwanza government, part of the plan is actually digital economy. And the digital economy is endeared towards the youth. To fulfill that plan, obviously the government has committed into 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic to cover the entire country. Then the gap is basically your last mile. How do these youth in every other remote area access? And this is where the digital hubs come in, which, if I'm successful, we will propose through other functions to actually use, for example, the post office points already established to actually be your digital hubs for the youth to actually access internet, to access connectivity, and do various production activities. That will be one of the examples we can fulfill with a very constrained physical space, the digitization, and actually enabling the youth to realize, some of the fruits of the Kenya Kwanza Peter commitment. So to assure my neighbor and very good friend, Honorable Bensouda, neighbor in terms of county, in terms of aggressiveness, yes, I have actually been modeled for so long in terms of my emotional intelligence to be completely level-headed, but punch with velvet gloves. So aggression itself, not measured, of course, is an issue because then people will complain and say you're being too harsh. It's a case where you're being assertive. It's a case where you're actually being firm but fair. And those are some of the attributes in terms of my personal approach. There was a question from the Honorable MP from Boni around they have seen other PSs come through the same reviews or approval hearings, and what is going to be the charm that I bring. I want to assure the Honorable Member that one of the things I bring out is actually my very long tenure in private practice, private sector, and private sector is about accountability and results. You commit, you deliver. I know that the Kenya government is now into performance contracting, and that's the thing we've done in private sector for nearly the last 30 years. You cannot maintain your employment unless you deliver your performance targets within a year. If you're almost contracted annually, if you don't deliver, you go. What I bring is my capacity to implement projects, my capacity to ensure that I follow through, using obviously the instruments and the other colleagues and officers in the ministry to track the commitments that the government and my department has made to ensure that we've delivered on time and actually within the budgets that have been agreed on. So I really bring in capacity implementation where in some instances people have actually lacked experience and in the process they've lost a lot of time because they promise they don't do. My mantra is actually speed and action. Promise and then implement. The Honorable Chair, the Honorable K. Chair, brought the whole issue around news and current affairs. He talked about our international obligations. He also cited one of the current issues, almost like as current as now, about the Nice Director of the Nation raising issues around misinformation and suggesting international coordination of our approach. I say that is actually the way the world is going. The world is actually flat. We have to coordinate our activities with security, for example, cybersecurity, or any other affairs that are international across the other jurisdictions. And in this case, for example, you go with the Pan-African sort of avenues, for example, AU, or even in East African Union, where our various agencies, through the intergovernmental contact, can then coordinate to make sure that they're tracking all these issues if they're actually cross-cutting in different countries or they're originating from different countries to our territory. Very important to respect territorial integrity, and if any overreach was to be done, of course, through the normal government channels, until the two sort of entities are actually coordinated, and in fact, because it's about a menace that is actually well managed.
I thank you. Honorable Abdisirat.
Thank you, Chair. I think mine have only one question. Most of the questions I can see has been asked. I don't know whether the nominee is aware that we have a lot of vernacular FMs in this country that are, have programs that are based on ethnic backgrounds. Most of them are preaching hatred and division. And there are a lot of discomfort in this country. We have, of course, the 2010 Constitution that everybody is referring to. And my view is that Constitution might destabilize this country unless we check those who have been bestowed to have regulatory authorities must crack the whip and take the request rate. My question is, if you are nominated, what are you going to do about these illicit, let me say, programs that are being aired by these vernacular FMs? I mean, tribal FMs, regional FMs, that are causing a lot of discomfort in this country. The case in point is Isiolo. We have a case everybody knows here. What happened there? We have rights, everybody has rights, but these rights, unless they are controlled and regulated, you might wake up for one morning and see no country here. Please. My take is, what specific measures do you have to deal with this menace if you are given this position? Thank you, Chair, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We are glad you were here in time to ask that question. It's a good question. Stephen, that question, you will answer it very succinctly, yes, and make your closing remarks.
Thank you, Ruto Chair. Thank you, Honorable Member. You raised a question around the vernacular stations, and they're actually being, you say that they're being toxic, and you give an example of one in Isiolo. I just want to confirm to the Honorable Committee, through the Chair, and in fact the wider public, that our Constitution, which is the law which guides everything else we do in this country, is very clear about media freedom. Under the Charter of Rights, Section 33, 34, 35, there is media freedom spelled out. However, as the Honorable Member says, there is also safeguards against any misuse of that freedom. So the media is free to do the right things, constructive things about culture, national development, all these things that actually enrich our country. The media is safeguarded, and there are exceptions to these rights against, for example, what the Honorable Ali is mentioning, for example, illicit activities, and he gives a specific case in Isiolo. So the regulator, the Communications Authority, through the Chair, is empowered to get complaints like what the Honorable Member is raising specifically, and there's a complaints segment for broadcasting that you can actually reach. It's an open-ended platform. Once a complaint is seized by the regulator, they will then investigate. You've got even recording logs of those broadcasts. Once established, there are actually established sanctions around, for example, inciting the public to violence or anything else. And there are severe consequences as well. For example, if you violate the Constitution. So I can assure the Honourable Member, if approved, it is the kind of things that will engage between this committee and the regulator to ensure that if complaints are raised, like what you say, they are followed through, and actually sanctions and serious sort of thing is done where the people are actually doing any illegal activities. Through the chair, if that is seen to be a full and a complete answer for that one, I just want to humbly just take maybe a minute to make my final submission, first as a Kenyan, secondly, as a professional, that you've accorded an opportunity to face you. So really, personally, to be grateful to God for the opportunity to even appear before this committee, because there were 50 million Kenyans, some who may never even have had the chance, even if they wished. Number two, I have built a career, as many honorable members have said, that is very dynamic, cross-cutting many sectors. I've switched sectors. I was an FMCG, I went to oil, I went to media and technology. That actually involves the whole mantra of the future, which is actually an information age, is about learning and relearning. You learn and relearn. In the process, especially in this digital age, I feel that given my dynamism and capacity that I've demonstrated with my private sector results that have actually spoken for themselves, and for the tenure that I've had, which many people get terminated because you don't deliver, by virtue of my existence just shows there is a track record. I shall translate the same capability of delivery, of capacity to actually track through some of the complex issues, to solve complex issues. And I dare say, Chair, the issue here is a leadership issue. You do not have to be a minute expert in an area to actually lead as a leader. Leadership is about coordination of talent. You lead engineers, you lead lawyers, you need accountants and economists. Overall, you have to have the helicopter view, but also hold these people into account by asking the right questions. That's how, for example, PA can actually lead sort of like a rocket scientist, and that actually happens in some instances. So I offer myself, and really to say, I really am not looking for a job. I'm looking for an opportunity to serve my country. I have had the privilege, rare privilege, of working for private sector, where it has been to those companies and myself. I am offering myself, if given the approval, to actually give back to my community. At this stage of my life is to actually build legacy and give back to Kenya, and especially some of the pertinent matters that the members have raised around patriotism, nationalism, and especially focusing on the youth, who we actually need to bequeath this country, with a functional country and, in fact, a progressing country. Just finally, Chair, through you, personally, I'm very convicted that, and I say this with finality, that the opportunity for one to serve one's country is probably the greatest honor one will have had in their life. The people in government never realize this. We outside government realize that. It is the greatest honor personally you can have before you expire. And given that opportunity, I will seize it as my biggest privilege to serve my country, to serve my people, and on behalf of God, to deliver what government and the leadership has committed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Honourable members, allow me not to dilute that any further, other than to say to Mr. Stephen Isaboke, first of all, thank you very much for appearing. Secondly, you have seen the commitment, the patriotism, and the stamina of this committee. They have engaged you on hours on end, and also to commend you for your articulation, your clarity of thought, the great story, very inspiring story that you have given us of your journey from a young orphan boy to the strides that you have made in your life, a very well-structured presentation, and for making a good showing. The long and short of it, even from your closing remarks, as you have told us when you are answering many questions, is that for any situation that you come across, you shall first appreciate the situation. You shall go and immerse yourself in that situation. You shall explore the possible solutions, and ultimately, then you shall act. And you have told us in your closing remarks that all this to you is your idea of service to country. If we have been good to you, that is our nature. If you have found us a bit abrasive, no one has anything personal. These individuals are working as representatives of the people who have gotten the opportunity to serve in this sector. And as such, they are pushing you to get the best out of you for nation and for sector. Stephen, we thank you very much. I will allow you the last opportunity to just let us know who else was in the room with you. Other than the photographer, we didn't get to know who else was in your party. And that will be the last duty I will ask you to perform by just handing over the microphone to your support team. So just introduce yourself. If you have any role that you are playing, you can say whatever that role is.
Thank you, Chair, and the committee. My name is Philip Warome. I'm an advisor to the PS nominee.
Thank you very much, honorable members. The time being 15 minutes past 15:00 hours, I would want to call this meeting adjourned until as shall be convened by notice, and I will request the honorable members to allow the nominee to leave. We shall also ask our visitors and our members of the Fourth Estate to take leave so that we can consult